has resolved for me this morning. In a normal seminar, you will have to go through a lengthy list of persons to formally recognize. But I can't see everyone, or at least I have an excuse that I can't see everyone, and so cannot list everyone. A pretty convenient excuse. I mean, other than not having to wear the bottom part of my suit. Notwithstanding, I can't see you all though. We do have a record of all who are in the webinar, and we really do appreciate that you have taken the time to be with us as we examine this very important issue and sector. I recognize among us the presence of farmers, agro-processors, representatives from support organizations, banks and other financial institutions, members of the diplomatic corps, representatives of multinationals and regional bodies, private sector and government representatives, members of the diaspora, members of the media, and many other interested parties. I also note the presence among us of the Honorable Minister of Agriculture of Guyana, Honorable Zulfikar Mustafa, the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Senator Clarence Rambarat, and the Honorable Minister within the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, the Honorable Senator Avinash Prasad of Trinidad and Tobago. A warm welcome to you all and thank you for being here. From the time I was small growing up, I've always heard persons speaking of the potential of agriculture in Guyana. Guyana has the potential to become the breadbasket of the Caribbean. Our future lies in agriculture. There have been many initiatives to realize this potential and embrace this future. Yet I've become much older and graying, but that potential has never been realized. Could it be that we didn't properly assess the challenges? Did we not adequately consider our opportunities? Did we ignore solutions that were right before our very eyes? Did we approach development of this sector in a properly focused and holistic way? Have we addressed the whole value chain involved? Our goal in this webinar is to seek to identify the key issues and opportunities and to come up with realistic solutions and critical imperatives that are needed to move the sector forward. To do so, we recognize there must be a framework for strengthening and expanding the sector. And so the first session in this webinar will deal with such framework and commitment from the high-level decision makers in the sector. In the second session, we will learn from the experiences of key stakeholders, the opportunities, challenges, solutions, and best practices that they have encountered and/or developed. With that springboard, a team of highly experienced panelists will then seek to identify critical actions for the growth and development of the agribusiness cluster in the final session. It is a quite packed schedule. And so with these few words, we will go directly into the first session. Our first speaker is the founder and principal of Environmental Management Consultants, a Guyanese business which provides services to the private sector, multilateral organizations, NGOs, and governments. He has been integrally involved in the leadership of Guyana's private sector and is currently the president of the Guyana Manufacturing and Services Association. In addition to the private sector, he has also provided leadership to government, where he previously served as advisor to the president and head of the Office of Climate Change. He holds a Master of Science degrees in Environmental Assessment and Management from the University of Oxford Brookes and is a recipient of several academic awards, including the prestigious Fulbright Scholarship and an IDB Japan Scholarship. Let us please welcome Mr. Sham Nokta, President of the GMSA, to deliver his remarks.
Good evening to everyone. Thank you for your interest and participation in this inaugural webinar on agriculture. I understand that we have over 250 persons logged on, and this is really good news. I wish to first of all recognize our featured presenters, Mr. Zulfikar Mustafa, Minister of Agriculture, and Minister willingly agreed to be part of this webinar, notwithstanding his very busy schedule. Ms. Sophie McKinnon, IDB Resident Representative, and I want to recognize the IDB. IDB has been and continues to be a key partner with the GMSA on crucial projects. I wish to acknowledge presenters from the agriculture and agro-processing sector. Many of them are members of the GMSA. We also have today representatives from the Diaspora, Dr. Kofi Dalrymple and Mr. Wayne Ford, representatives from our collaborative partners, the Ministry of Agriculture, teams from the IDB and the Guyana Development Initiative. Joining us as well are the many persons who have signed in today to be part of this event, from the business community, multilateral agencies, the diplomatic corps, educational institutions, government ministries and agencies, the agri-business sector, and non-traditional sectors. I understand as well there are persons from the oil and gas sector here as well. Welcome. Welcome to this webinar on opportunities for strengthening the value chain and expanding agriculture in a post-COVID-19 environment. The background to this webinar came out of a recent survey done by the GMSA on the impact of COVID-19 on our business and the devastating impact it continues to have, especially on small and micro enterprises. As a business support organization, the GMSA recognizes that we could not simply continue to wait for this situation to change. We needed to act, to adapt, and to be proactive. We also recognize that as a body, primarily focused on value adding, we could not ignore the supply aspect of this important sector. In fact, one of the main challenges to agro-processing has been the ready supply and availability of materials and produce. With this in mind, we felt we needed to bring together the key stakeholders working in agriculture, large and small agro-producers and processors, policymakers, donor organizations, and other stakeholders in Guyana and in the diaspora. This webinar has done so. This webinar could not have come at a more opportune time. We have in place a government which has indicated that agriculture is one of its main priorities and has taken immediate actions to give a push to the sector, from a suite of budget measures to other actions such as the reopening of sugar estates, relooking at Guyana's trade policy, efforts on the way currently to revise the CET, the aggressive push for an energy mix to bring the cost of electricity down, and a general thrust to remove the barriers to agriculture and value adding. We also recognize that in this period, many of the multilateral organizations are likely to be relooking at their country strategies. This presents an opportunity to bring into the support programs priority areas and actions which could come out of today's session. That's why I am delighted that we have representatives from the IDB, the FAO, ICA, and the diplomatic community here today. From a private sector perspective, there is renewed interest in agriculture. Businesses in Guyana and overseas are looking to invest and expand. It is for these reasons that the GMSA, as a leading private sector body with a majority of our members from the agro-processing sector, sees this opportunity to bring stakeholders together. We recognize that food security is one of the top 3 global issues today, and it will be in the future. Guyana's agriculture potential has been well recognized. However, for many reasons, Guyana has been unable to realize this potential. COVID-19 has brought its fair share of challenges nationally and internationally, and no sector has been spared. However, in a post-COVID-19 environment, with a renewed consciousness for building back better And with greater emphasis on sustainability, there are opportunities for Guyana. One of them being food security and taking advantage of growing markets in Guyana, regionally and further, for the supply of food. As a country, we have started the transition from subsistence farming to medium and large-scale ventures. We have a unique opportunity as a country, and more so, with the chance to deploy oil revenues to support diversification. However, we need to act. In our own way, the GMSA has sought to build on our previous initiatives. I am pleased to announce that we have taken the step to transition our successful uncapped initiative to an online portal with special focus on small and micro enterprises. Through this effort, the intention is to establish an online marketplace showcasing the agro products locally produced and connecting businesses with the market. We recognize that this will involve much work to help small businesses through this transition. The GMSA is committed to this. While triggered by COVID-19, we see this as an embrace of ICT and a step towards supporting a green, low-carbon economy. And I do hope today, in our deliberations, we can explore issues of innovation, technology transfer, and climate-smart agriculture. As with most conferences, the question is always, what happens next? I want to assure you that the GMSA will seek to include the outcomes from today into our collaborative arrangements with government and other key stakeholders. Through an invitation from Minister Mustafa, we have established a joint working group with the Ministry of Agriculture. This group will meet monthly to ensure we are working together to address issues affecting the sector. Through this effort, we intend to pursue a cluster approach to involve key partners such as the IDB, GDI, the Diaspora group, and other stakeholders. We believe that such an approach of bringing everyone to the table can ensure there is a common understanding of the challenges and opportunities. It can help foster a collaborative approach and to move forward as one team. To put in place the notion of public-private partnership, the GMSA, we see a role in helping to drive this process. As we've done before, our approach is not only to call on government to act, but also to come to the table with actions the private sector is prepared to take. In closing, I wish to say that yes, there is excitement about oil and gas in Guyana, and rightly so. However, we have an opportunity to expand agriculture, even as we pursue oil and gas opportunities. Let us use this webinar as a springboard for affirmative action and collaboration. Thank you, and best wishes for successful deliberations and outcomes today.
Thank you very much, Sham, for highlighting some of the issues involved that you would like to discuss today, and also the opportunities that the sector presents. Also the role of the GMSA and its commitment to this whole process. Before I go to the next speaker, just one quick announcement. If you're experiencing any difficulty with the Zoom platform, this broadcast is also being live streamed, or the webinar is being live streamed on Demerara Wave, so you can join from there as well too. Our next speaker is a Canadian citizen who was born in the UK and grew up in Ethiopia, so she can be termed a global citizen, apt because she works for a global organization. More importantly, in her heritage though, she has lived through a range of different situations and is well able to connect developing reality with developed promise through relevant opportunity. She entered the IDB in 2004 and served as Chief Operations Officer in Haiti following the devastating Hurricane devastating earthquake, of 2010. Our speaker played a key role in re-establishing the IDB's country office in that devastated country, overseeing the execution of an ambitious portfolio of support to the country's reconstruction. She was appointed as a country representative of the IDB in Guyana in 2012 and holds a bachelor's degree in history from the University of Quebec in Montreal and a master's degree in education from the University of Montreal. She is an established partner in Guyana's development and brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to her role. I invite Ms. Sophie Makonnen to address us on the opportunities for strengthening the value chain and expanding agriculture in a post-COVID-19 environment.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. It's an honor to be here. I know that all protocols have been established, but I would still like to recognize Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Minister Zulfikar Mustafa, and the President of GMSA, Mr. Sham Naka, all invited speakers, members of the press, guests and members of the media, and distinguished guests. Good morning. It is a pleasure to be here with you this morning, and I am at this point working virtually and heading my way back to Guyana in a few days, but I'm sitting in Montreal at this point, so virtual does really work. So it's a pleasure to be here this morning with you. And I would like to thank for the invitation to deliver the remarks. I'd like to first of all congratulate the GMSA team and the planning committee, because there are several weeks of work behind all of this preparation, as you see. And it's very important to bring together all these stakeholders of the agriculture sector and discuss how to move forward out of the health and economic crisis that has now afflicted the entire world. Agriculture has been one of the standing and the main pillars of the Guyanese economy, and I'm not saying anything you don't know. And it's currently representing around 30% of the total production, including agriculture-related manufacturing products based on rice and sugar. Agriculture is also the source of Guyana's main exports, behind the mining sector, of course, with rice, fish, timber, and fruit products making up to a quarter of total export. However, as we've mentioned, and as the previous speaker mentioned, the economy is in transition, and the size of the new oil economy is expected to dwarf the rest of the economy. Yet, that does not make the traditional sectors any less important. On the contrary, the context of the COVID-19 pandemic represents a great opportunity. It represents an opportunity to address Guyana's, what I will call old problems here, meaning they're not new, we know about them, to leverage and strengthen Guyana's traditional economic sectors. And now more than ever, food security is a global issue. Many supply chains around the world have been disrupted. I think we've all seen that happening. And it potentially represents a change to how many markets will be filling the agriculture and food demands in the future. Additionally, strengthening a key traditional sector like agriculture will be important to reduce Guyana's dependency on oil production and diversify the economy, as Mr. Naka said just a few minutes before me. Economic diversification is expected to improve competitiveness and build a resilient economy capable of weathering economic storms when prices in one sector fall or there's a production-related negative shock. And finally, economic diversification and addressing the economy's, once again, old problem, the ones that we know we've been dealing with for years. I say we because I've been working with Guyana for a long time, will be necessary to avoiding the resource curse, where countries do wars rather than better when a natural resource is available in abundance. Telecommunication and technology is important. The global pandemic has drawn attention to the challenges posed by differences in technological capabilities across the world. I think we see that every day in the news. And this is relevant for Guyana as well, where the number of internet users is relatively low compared to other countries in the region where the bank is also working. We have a few numbers here. According to the World Bank World Development Indicators in 2017, 37% of the population in Guyana use the internet compared to 68% on average in other neighboring countries, such as the Bahamas, Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, and Suriname. In agriculture, the role of technology has been fundamental to improving productivity and introducing other benefits. Incorporating great innovation into the agriculture value chain and production processes would contribute to expanding the sector in the post-COVID environment. I don't think we're yet there, but in post-COVID environment or COVID environment. The literature suggests that additional benefits from introducing innovation in agriculture production and services include decreasing the use of fertilizers and pesticides, lowering the impact of the lowering the impact of the ecosystems. Energy and logistics, other old problems as we call them here, remain the energy sector and transportation, where high costs in energy and unreliability on implicit tax on primary and agro-processing business alike. Transportation logistics are also known bottlenecks. I think everybody who does a bit of agriculture and tries to transport knows that. Guyana's ranking on trading sector border is indicative of this challenge, declining from 82nd in 2015 to 151st in 2020. Not necessarily because Guyana is scoring less on the indicator, but because other countries are making progress and more progress than Guyana. So what is even more telling, Guyana's time to export is estimated at 200 hours, the longest time in Latin America and the Caribbean. For perishable agriculture products, this is a critical issue that absolutely needs to be addressed if Guyana is to be competitive. The 2014 Compete Caribbean Private Sector Survey highlighted obstacles and others, mentioning electricity costs, as I just said, cost of access to finance. They mentioned corruption, crime and theft and disorder, telecommunication, and a political environment as major severe obstacles to doing business. I don't think this has changed much since 2014. In this context, strengthening public sector institutions such that they can provide services, enhancing private sector activity in a collaborating partnership remains an old problem that needs to be solved. Well-functioning institutions are considered important for economic development, including reducing the time to export. Strong institutions provide clear rules that reduce levels of uncertainty for doing business and allows the private sector to make medium and long-term investment plans with greater confidence. The IDB has been involved in the IDB, in the agriculture sector for a number of years, and we've done a couple of agriculture projects that were provided to improve the provisions of public services, especially in the supply of reliable and environmentally sustainable electricity. And we have in other areas, their bank is working with government on program to establish also a single window for trade with the goal of facilitating the clearance of goods across borders, reducing the time and cost of custom procedures, would contribute to improved competitiveness, as I just mentioned, and reduce economic losses. Potentially expanding the variety of products that could be exported and even improving Guyana's performance in the World Bank's Trading Across Borders ranking would be one of the benefits of that. Finally, the bank is also working with Guyana National Bureau of Standards, GMBS, to support private sector to improve the quality of their products and be able to also demonstrate that locally instead of having to go to other countries, neighboring countries like Trinidad. The project intends to finance the national quality of infrastructure, which is the institutional framework governing quality standards. The project includes the construction of a laboratory and equipment for metrology, testing, and chemistry, which will have the objective of supporting businesses reach international quality standards such that Guyanese product will be accepted and traded in international markets. So this is globally what we are doing also to support the value chain at the public sector. We also have a long history of supporting agricultural sector, and since 2004, we've been doing quite a few programs, and I won't bore everybody. I think many of you know about them. And so I would like to invite the private sector stakeholders to approach our colleagues to IDB Invest and IDB Lab in this exchange and in the future. And I hope this is an opportunity to explore opportunities to grow your businesses. We wish you a very successful webinar, and we look forward to today's discussion. Thank you very much, and we are honored to be part of this process, and we're very happy to support you, be a development partner to Guyana in its public sector and private sector roles. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sophie. Sophie has provided some very interesting and useful data for the sector, reminder how much we need to catch up if we're to become competitive. We appreciate the role the IDB is playing in the sector, and we look forward to your continuing role in ensuring that both the private sector and the general agricultural sector is given the attention that the IDB is giving it currently. And I also know Sophie is missing the sunshine in Guyana right now. Our next speaker has spent many years interacting with thousands of farmers across the country. He represented the interests of countless agricultural workers during his career in the General Agriculture up to the level of Assistant General Secretary, and has promoted a robust agriculture agenda while he was serving as the Regional Chairman of Region 6, one of the largest agricultural producing regions in Guyana. Serving multiple terms as a Member of Parliament, he holds a bachelor's degree in management from the University of the West Indies and has participated in numerous agriculture-related courses and seminars regionally and internationally. His dedication to the sector and years of experience and training makes him well equipped with the necessary skills and knowledge to positively transform this sector. He is married to Mrs. Shabana Mustafa, his wife of 26 years, and they have 2 children. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure of welcoming to the virtual podium the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Zulfikar Mustafa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Sophie McKinnon, IDB Country Representative, Mr. Sham Nokta, President of the Guyana Manufacturing and Services Association Limited, panelists in today's discussion, member of the GMSA and Ministry of Agriculture, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to give brief remarks on today's discussion focus on opportunities for strengthening the value chain and expanding agriculture in a post-COVID-19 environment. First, let me say the agriculture sector has what it takes to drive the economy post-COVID-19. Since March 2020, the unprecedented impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic has been felt not only in the public health system, but in the economy. The COVID-19 pandemic has amplified our awareness of the importance of food security. Ladies and gentlemen, Guyana is a food secure country, having met global hunger targets in 1996 of the World Food Summit and in 2000 of the United Nations Millennium Development Goals. Guyana produces 59% of the food consumption, which means our food import dependency is 41%. It is the government's intention to reduce this import dependency by creating an enabling environment for an efficient and competitive local manufacturing sector. The agriculture sector, both the public and private sectors, are struggling to deal with the impact of this pandemic. Whilst there is no major problem of availability of food, access to food through supply chain interruptions and loss of income are being experienced. Guyana recently participated in a regional assessment on the impact of COVID-19 on food security and on the agriculture sector. This survey was carried out by the FAO and CARICOM during July and September of this year, 2020. While the findings is still preliminary, some of these include: 1. Decline in farmers' income, an average of 20 to 50% income loss of farmers. Farmers reported difficulties accessing agriculture inputs, things like seeds and planting materials, fertilizer and pesticides. Price of seeds, fertilizers are higher than usual. Seed varieties, planting material, and fertilizers and pesticides regularly used are not available to these farmers. Input suppliers and food traders recorded lower sales due to business restrictions and client restrictions and higher operating costs of the agri-businesses. Food traders have recorded a decline in customers, and thus the level of sales has decreased tremendously. Food traders have experienced difficulties in terms of food items, transportation in the last 3 months. Food traders have recorded an increase in input prices such as fertilizer and chemical. Looking ahead, agribusinesses expect difficulties in market supplies and sales. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, we must focus on ways to expand, shift agriculture from primary producer to value added, to reduce the 41% dependency on import, which include processed products, dairy products, grains such as corn and soybeans, etc. This expansion will aid in the reduction of our domestic food import bill of Guyana $45 billion. There is also the opportunity for Guyana to tap into the estimated $8 to $10 billion US CARICOM market food import bill. This webinar today is timely as it paves a path forward for us to coexist with COVID-19, which will be with us for the foreseeable future, and at the same time cash in on the opportunities to expand agriculture. In this regard, I must thank the GMSA and its members for setting up this webinar. It is also timely as we are in the process of Budget 2020 and a few days before we launch Agriculture Month 2020 to discuss the subject of opportunities for strengthening the value chain and expanding agriculture in our country. I must mention I consulted with the GMSA earlier this month and was briefed on 6 main challenges identifying the agro-processing industry, which include high cost of production due to energy, access to raw materials and taxation, lack of access to financing, low technology and technical knowledge, lack of required legislation, specifically food safety, lack of marketing and market access, poor coordination among enabling agencies, and the ease of doing business. These constraints, especially the high energy costs, has caused the sector to remain passive and not expanded at the rate one would like, as is evident in its contribution to GDP, which over the years has remained small but constant, around 3 to 4%. Other manufacturing, which comprises agro-processing. Therefore, to expand and strengthen the sector, we must zoom in on the challenges and address them. High cost of production. Energy. The government fully comprehends the constraints affecting the businesses and their competitiveness. To this end, you would have seen the government in just 1 month in office has already reversed VAT on exports, agriculture equipment, fertilizer, agrochemicals, pesticides, etc., and the reversal of land, rent, and D&I charges. These measures are contrived to enhance the private sector's competitiveness and expansion so that they can realize or obtain some of the economies of scale. Furthermore, the government is committed to the generation of cheap electricity. In this regard, the government would pursue hydroelectricity, among other energy generation initiatives. No less a person than the President himself has committed to this. In his inauguration speech, the President said that the PPP civic government is committed to providing the nation with cheaper and more reliable electricity. Over the next 5 years, ladies and gentlemen, the government will reduce the cost of energy by 50% through a mix of hydro, gas, solar, and wind power. Access to raw material. Agriculture agencies such as the GMC and the NARI will work with farmers to form formal market arrangements, such as clusters, to address the raw materials challenge for agro-processors and input for agro-producers. This will assist with issues of reliability, quantity, and quality of supply. with Budget 2020, the Ministry of Agriculture has started a rural infrastructural development plan targeting both drainage and irrigation and farm-to-market access roads to reduce the cost of production for farmers. Additionally, we will coordinate with the Ministry of Public Works for the development of major infrastructural projects like the newly announced ferry service from Region 1 Baraima-Waini to Georgetown. Taxation. Budget 2020 gives tax concession and investment in agro-processing facilities, cold storage, and packaging to provide opportunities for agro-processors to grow, process, and trade more to increase their income. This is a start. We will continue to build on as the years progress. Additionally, the reversal of VAT on electricity, water, machinery and equipment, export, fertilizers, agrochemical, amongst others, will improve the viability of the small business startup and the sustainability of existing businesses by reducing the cost of production and increasing competitiveness. Access to financing. The government is committed to supporting private sector development by pursuing and maintaining an environment for businesses, including agro-processing, to establish and to grow. To this end, small businesses will be supported with $100 million from the Small Business Development Fund to be used to provide loans and grants to prospective small business owners. Mr. Chairman, my ministry will work with the Ministry of Tourism and Industry and Commerce and with agri-businesses to ensure they can tap in to this fund, whether it be assistance in the proposal or capacity building and how to get value for dollars when operating a business. Technology and technical knowledge, research and development. For us to fully take advantage of the opportunities for high-value agro-processed products, there is need for more research and development, and it must be commercially viable. I give my ministry's commitment to closer working engagement between the Ministry of Agriculture agencies, GAISUCO, the Guyana Rice Development Board, the NARI, the GSA, GMC, and Institute of Applied Science and Technology, etc., and the private sector, so that research and development can be tailored and there is a link with businesses for investment and sustainability. To this end, I want to express here this morning that we have had invitations sent to the GMSA for the GMSA to recommend members from their organization to sit on the board of directors and many of our agencies within the Ministry of Agriculture. Processing technology and techniques. We will work with producers group and progressive farmers and agro-processors to establish processing facilities for the processing of agriculture produce, such as dry fruit, fruit juices, peanut butter, etc. We will work to secure low-cost technology for primary processing in rural areas. The Ministry of Agriculture will collaborate and coordinate with the Ministry of Tourism, Industry and Commerce to facilitate agro-processors in business incubators at the industrial estate located at Lethem and in Borbies, Belvedere and the Quarantine. Food safety legislation. The Food Safety Authority will soon be operational. Immediately after Budget 2020, the Ministry of Agriculture and Health will be formally working and phase in the operationalization. Our primary focus will be the safety of food imported. The National Plant Protection Organization and the NARI will soon operate under the Food Safety Authority. This arm currently focuses on the farm certification for export only. This will expand from farm produce standard for safety and quality for both domestic and exports, ensuring good agriculture practice. Programs are follows. To ensure food safety through monitoring the use pattern and practices of chemicals, the Pesticides and Toxic Chemical Control Laboratory have started to test pesticide residue in agriculture produce. This ensures food safety at the national level, and supports the trade of locally produced agricultural commodities, marketing and market access. For Budget 2020, the Guyana Marketing Corporation have been allocated $236 million to support institutional marketing arrangement, strengthen value chain, work with farmers to be in compliance with quality standards and food safety system, and expand new high-value process market for Guyana, packaging and labeling. To ensure that agro-processors are compliant with the international packaging and labeling requirements, the Guyana Marketing Corporation has acquired the Genesis of R&D software, which is used to compute nutritional facts for produce. Additionally, Guyana Marketing Corporation has embarked on a project purchasing packaging materials in bulk for sale to agro-processors. GMC and GMSA can build on its working partnership to ensure all members benefit from these initiatives. Domestic market and CARICOM market. Due to COVID-19, there are limited hours for operations of restaurants and food establishments, thereby reducing the sales of farmers' businesses. However, another opportunity post-COVID-19 is a public procurement system of agricultural commodities to the government institution, such as the Army, hospitals, and school feeding program, be sourced from farmers or farmers' groups. These public institutions are in constant need for agriculture produce and can be an outlet for farm supply. These facilities have already spent government funds to purchase food. Therefore, we'll direct a certain percentage to local farmers' businesses. Additionally, we need to work CARICOM through COTEC to have a thorough assessment of the products which our Caribbean brothers and sisters are importing from outside of the region. An examination of the data would show that there is more than $14.2 million market for fruits and vegetables in CARICOM. Such products include cabbage, $4 million annually, banana and plantain, $3.6 million, this is US dollars, tomatoes, $2.9 million, lime and lemon, $1.4 million, pineapple, $1.3 million, watermelon, $808,000 US, Bora, Balanja, okra and pumpkin, $120,000 US, mango, $117,000 US dollars. I find this unbelievable, since we have right here in Guyana the capacity and capability to supply those very products. However, we as a government must generate and create the enabling environment to assist the private sector to invest the necessary technologies and capabilities to meet those demands and compete internationally. We are cognizant of this and will work closely with the GMSA and other stakeholders to develop a strategy to ensure that Guyana has a fair opportunity to satisfy those demands, and more importantly, ensuring that we are capable of meeting those demands. Additionally, the Ministry of Agriculture will engage with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to further this discourse, coordinating and improve efficiency in key agencies. The Ministry of Agriculture, in collaboration with the GMSA, will formulate a joint technical working group to work out these challenges and coordinating mechanism among both private and public sector to improve efficiency, including key agencies such as Agency of the Ministry of Agriculture, GMC, NARI, GLDA, Food Safety Authority, Food and Drug Department, Guyana National Bureau of Standards, Go Invest, Guyana Revenue Authority, etc. To be able to achieve this, we need a transformation in the areas outlined. I am giving you my commitment and the commitment of the government to achieve this sectorial change. We have begun radical shifts in policies, especially investments, as was announced in budgetary measure in Budget 2020 that I have mentioned before. Despite the challenges of COVID-19, you will agree with me that this is an opportune time to be involved in agribusiness. And with my ministry and partners such as the Inter-American Development Bank and the private sector like the GMSA. This sector is too important to Guyana for use to allow it to be left behind. Agriculture has always been an important contributor to our economic growth and social development. It contributes 20% to the national GDP, approximately $70 billion Guyana dollar to the foreign earnings, and employs 17% of our population. It is for these reasons and those mentioned before that we must continue to engage and keep the dialogue going on how we can work together to build and sustain a prosperous agriculture sector. I thank you.
Indeed, Mr. Minister, the challenges are many, but we note your government's commitment and the specific initiatives that your ministry and the government is taking to alleviate these, to overcome these challenges and alleviate the problems the sector face. Ladies and gentlemen, that basically brings us to the end of the first session. Before we go to a video, I just want to inform you that there is a question and answer section at the bottom of your screens. We encourage you to type your questions there. For reasons of time and logistics, we will not have an audible question and answer period at the end of each presentation, but presenters will individually answer your questions on the Q&A to the extent that they can, of course, in the time allotted, and the questions will also advise the panel discussion in the third session. It is quite likely that you will require, or you may require, further follow-up, and so at the end of the webinar, we will remind you of the GMSA's contact information from where the Secretariat will advise how far the discussion can ensue. We'll go to a quick video now, a short video on the fundamental role of agriculture in Guyana.
Guyana's vast tracts of productive land represent enormous opportunities for growth in the agriculture and agro-processing sectors. Agriculture already represents a significant proportion of Guyana's gross domestic product, approximately 12.37% of GDP in 2019. It is estimated that 65% of the food consumed in the country is locally grown. Guyana is seeking to reduce its high food import bill, estimated at $250 million per year, based on the import figures for 2017 to 2020. These imports include milk products, spices, canned foods, and other items that can be produced locally. Guyana can produce a significant amount of these locally and still have enough left over to export to the region and fulfill its potential to become the breadbasket of the Caribbean. Traditionally, rice and sugar have been our main exports, but Guyana also has a thriving non-traditional crop sector. Agriculture remains a vitally important source of income for Guyana and Guyanese employed in the sector. The nation continues to diversify and enhance agriculture to strengthen its role as a catalyst for the nation's economic development.
I don't know if we can really manage a virtual round of applause for our first three speakers, but maybe we can just
Yes.
Yeah. To take us through the next session, which deals with the opportunities, with the challenges, with the solutions, the best practices, will be Carol Webster. Carol is the founder and CEO of O-Square Consulting and COO of the Guyana Economic Development Trust. She is also a lecturer in the School of Entrepreneurship, Business and Innovation of the University of Guyana. She has an MBA from the University of the West Indies, and she points out that she earned it, and is certified in MP Lean Master. I guess they did work her hard, and Agile frameworks. She has a passion for working with both startups and established businesses, and has advised many businesses all across the spectrum of size, type, industry served, and even across countries. She remigrated to Guyana in 2015, and obviously is a favorite among her students as she brings much practical experience to her classes. I leave you now in Carol's capable hands.
Thank you, Raymond. It's an honor for me to be here today on this webinar. And while we've heard of challenges and obstacles, we've also heard of aspirations, plans, and commitments at the highest level and with our international partners as well. So I'm sure you're recognizing the incredible opportunities that exist in Guyana's agricultural sector. So let's hear the perspectives of those who are actually engaged in various activities in the agricultural sector. This next series of presenters represent several small and large agro-processors and agro-producers. First, to tell you his story and how mentorship and support helped him develop his business is Aditya Prasad from Arias Fresh Cut.
Over the years, there has been a growing call for value-added products from the local market, and some agro-processors have heeded this call by improving their products through modern preparation and packaging. One such business is Arias Fresh Cut, a local agriculture enterprise that not only generates, but they also prepare and package produce so that they can go straight from the shelf into the pot.
Right, so good morning, everyone, to our international guests. I wish to, of course, say thank you for coming on, and to all our members from the GMSA, as well as those who would have signed up and signed on this morning. A pleasant good morning and thank you. Today I will briefly give you the story of Arias Fresh Cut. And I say briefly because initially Raymond and team, they said, you can do this. I know you can do this in 9 minutes. It's like giving me a high heel to climb the kite shore. So, let's go right ahead into it. So immediately in 2015, I would have taken a break from the Ministry of Agriculture, 2014 near about, and I started this business with my wife. She was the brainchild, of course. It all started when she was preparing meal, and I jokingly said to her, "Listen, Diana, you are doing such a good job at preparing these meals, placing it in the fridge and keeping these vegetables fresh. You can make people's life easy if you take it seriously." It was a joke from my end. Everybody know I joke a lot, but she took it very seriously. And she said to me, "Listen, why don't we do it?" And I said, "Fine." In about 9 months, I would have taken and done all the groundwork for her as an agronomist myself. And then we came up with a name and all the technical things from the different agencies, GMC, ministry, and every other place. And then we have seen how fresh veggies are being handled on the local market. And as a professional locally, and I've trained abroad, and I've visited so many places abroad, it was different in those days and those times. And I decided to bring that into our market space here in Guyana. The name Arias, of course, Aria means noble. It's also the middle name of my small daughter. And then from there, we understood as we start that rising consumer demand also came with great awareness for food safety, quality, and increased need for convenience and efficient service. And exactly that is what we have been doing for the past 5 to 6 years in this business. So that is like a gist of the story. It did start with a joke, of course, like I said, and we have moved it into where it is today. How did we incorporate science? Like I said, as an agronomist, I ensured from the farm everything was done that requires GAP, good agricultural practices. We then take it to the processing where again another level of science is applied. This is like our secret ingredient. No chemicals are being used that or what do you call things to preserve and stuff. They are not used there. Everything comes fresh from farm. It's washed, high oxygenated wash. It removes all bacteria, virus. Again, like I said, science involved. And then into chillers or refrigerators or the vehicles themselves, which then takes them out to the supermarket. And it's done daily. So every day when people are picking up at the supermarket, they know they're picking up fresh stuff. So we have that arrangement with the supermarket to ensure that they always tell us their quantity, and back and forth, we always replenish the shelves. So this, again, is the hallmark of our production, what we do, the quality, the consistency in the packaging, the freshness of the produce, and we ensure that at the end of the day, the consumer receives the best, just the best. And from our feedback that we have been getting, because we always do feedback and reviews, we have always been told there is being consistency. So it doesn't swell our head or make us too proud. We just work every day to keep that quality and maintain it, so that it doesn't matter if you bought 5 years ago or you're buying today, you would still be receiving the same quality. When we talk about mentorship, I just want to say thank you to all of these names you're seeing here, and there are quite some more of our local guys, but these are the guys that we have. I've personally and the business has received mentorship from Bounty Farms, David Finance from Bounty Farms and Bounty Supermarket, Mr. DeGroot, Survival, Parshu and Rakesh. Of course, we have had interactions with them initially, and they were all supportive of this. David, for example, he said to me they were going to do this at Bounty Farm. When he heard that I took on the role and I was going to do this project and kick in with the fresh vegetable, he says, you know what, I will take it off. And for me, that's very respectable at that time in my life. And even today, I commend him for that, for pulling it from their shelves and say, Aditya, handle this. And so we have been doing that. And then Mr. Indi Bihari, the late Indi Bihari, and Suresh from the Bihari group of companies, they've always been there to guide and advise me in the aspect of business, which I am very new to. Baron Products, Mr. Ronald from St. Lucia, he said to me, you need all the sciences, and Ronald being a chemist himself, he really helped me. You know, nights late into the night, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, Ronald will be up talking to me on some of the things that I need. And of course, Chris as well from Umami here in Guyana, all of these guys. So I want to tell our people out there, mentorship in business, especially for us from a youngster perspective, is very, very important, and you must cherish it. So then we go into the other aspect, Ben, which is, you know, the next slide, we'll look at the support. And the support system, again, like I said, in business has many positive benefits, such as very high level of well-being, better coping skill, and returns on investments. And we have as well received so much support, not just from the supermarkets, but from our customers and from the various franchises that we deal with. And they're always being, you know, because of quality and consistency, the support is always there. We deliver what they require, and that is the game. We do not try to push on to people what we have. The market desire this, and the requirements are, they require this, we give them that. And so there has always been that support back and forth. But we are thankful from all our customers. We have hundreds of them, thousands of them, I guess, now, our local supermarkets and our franchises, for the continued support that we've been getting. And looking forward to it as well. Ben? So I just want to show you now quickly some of the images that we work in, the conditions, you know, from farm to doorstep. That is what we're doing right now. So these are the images you're seeing at the farm using big tractors, but this one is a small tiller. The next image, you're going to see what happens, you know, at the farm itself after preparing. This is one of our papa and then pepper locations that we do the spices and the fruits. We do okra, pumpkins and stuff here as well. To the next screen, this is when it's processed and washed. It's done, it's packaged, depends on how the client wants it. So in the case of the Bora, they want it in 4 pounds pack, so it goes into 4 pound. In the case of the Pak Choi triple washed, it's gonna be in crates and delivered. Some clients, in the next slide, you will see they want it in net bags. So we do that as well for them. Here you see they go into chiller, carrots, cabbage, Bora, these things, tomatoes, and continuously. This is the standard, this is the style in which we operate. So again, we just want to say, the next slide, Ben, we just want to say that we keep and we maintain quality at every point. You know, some client, this is for supermarket here, the okra in the red crates. In the van, that's for a mining company where that they require it in net bags for transport purposes in airplanes. So all of this is happening on the ground, and you know, we do it and we keep and maintain standard. The next slide, please. Yeah. So, you know, quickly what the media say, you can go through this quickly. We were captured in the Guyana Chronicle telling us about, you know, taking the Isles by storm there. The Kiteshore News telling us we delivering high quality produce and affordable prices. That was the headline. Stabroek News, they carried an article as well, taking it big on the markets. So we have been there in the media and we continue to be there. And today, where we are at, and this will close off our presentation. Today, we are Guyana's first online fresh food store, and I want to say that again, first online fresh food store where you can go on your phone, you can go on a computer, laptop, whatever, and you order from your office and we deliver to your doorstep, which is why I said earlier, from farm to doorstep. And so you take it to your plate and stuff afterwards, but it's from farm to doorstep, and that is what it is, ariasfreshcut.com. You can check out the website wherever you are, and you can see all the produce on there. And we are thankful for Bihari Group of Company and Umami for coming on as well on the website. So thank you, and I'm happy again to present this morning.
Well, thank you, Aditya. Here we had the story of freshness, quality, consistency, and convenience, and how important it is to pay attention to the market and facilitate your customers. And so that's exciting. Next up is a young lady who is in the beauty products field of agro-processing. As a matter of fact, I'm using her natural hair oil. What started out as a small idea to address one of her needs blossomed into an exciting new business with new products on the local market. So let's hear from Cheryl Daniels and her story in agro-processing. And I'm going to ask you to pay special attention to her situation so that some specific feedback to Cheryl. Here's Cheryl now.
Small agro-processing businesses in Guyana have been emerging and increasing over the years, and many agro-processors have found their niches in agro-processing by producing a range of food products. Notably, there has been a rise in beauty products being produced locally. Among the over 80 small agro-processors registered with the GMSA is Cheryl Daniels, the proprietor of Cheryl's Cosmetics.
I started this product in 2008 with the Mega Growth and the hair oils. I started making it and just giving it away to friends. And the idea just struck me, what about making this thing, marketing it? So we'd make probably like 20 of each. And now we're making them by the hundreds. At present, we even do a little shipment. We send to the US, we send a little to Europe. We have the Caribbean countries like Barbados, Trinidad, Suriname. We've catapulted to a level that we ourselves are astonished about how we've grown and how we've been growing.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Oh, hi, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure being here. Protocols acknowledged to all those ministers and visitors and all who are logged in. Today, I'm overwhelmed being here. Thank you very much to GSMA particularly. So about Cheryl's Cosmetics. We started as a small business, that is. Our products, first off, next slide, Ben. Our products are not only for women. We particularly facilitate women, but men and children. We would say our products are baby friendly, granny friendly, right? We have a staffing of six full-time staff, 3 part-time staff. We make the total of 15 products. Those are shampoos, conditioners, hair oils, hair moisturizers, 10 types of bar soaps, natural soap powders. We make black sage charcoal toothpaste, coconut charcoal toothpaste. For the year 2020, we have launched a few new products. Those are our natural body oils, our beard oil, natural hair gel, lip balm, and also we've launched into our hotel packages is the miniature hotel packages, the bar soaps, the shampoos, conditioners, body wash, and so forth. Okay, we use 100% natural raw materials. For instance, some of the stuff we use, most of the raw materials we use are locally produced. Those are crab oil. Some of them we import as well, but they're all natural oils. Crab oil, olive oil, coconut, shea butter, cocoa butter. Due to some of these, we're not having access to some of them, we've started producing some ourselves. Those are awara oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, the abe oil, the tonka oil, and the flaxseed oil. So we, myself and staff, we've decided that we're going to make these oils. The fact that we're having these particular fruits, the last that I've called, to our advantage. So we started making those. Green initiative. The entire world is going green now. A lot of people have been aware of recycling and such like. So we've implement that into our business as well. So we at Charles Cosmetics, we reuse and we recycle our containers. Customers are able to refill their containers at a percentage less per product. We also package. Our packaging and our labeling is also used recycled paper. So we implement that into our system as well. For fuel, to burn, to extract the oils from the fruits and the nuts, we use charcoal. The coals, the firewood, we use that as fuel. So that also helps us economize and also go green. On the screen, you're seeing a few of our products. For instance, the hair oil, that is 23 oils infused in one. It has many benefits. All natural oils, we infuse them at the right amount, making sure pH is balanced in all our products, and also it's okay. The Mega Grow, that in fact the hair moisturizer, the style, deal with fuzz and frizz, and it works effectively. A lot of people are having results from our products. Next slide, Ben. Okay. So lack of adequate space. We've started this company. Are you guys hearing me?
Yes, we are, Cheryl. Go ahead.
Hello? Hello, are you guys hearing me?
Go ahead, Cheryl. We are.
Okay, great. Just checking. So lack of adequate space. We have started this company in my kitchen. Myself, along with, we had a few assistants, we started this company in our kitchen using our kitchen utensils. At present, we've poured over into the garage. The garage, well, all our machines, staffing, our packaging, our labeling, everything is done there. So you find now we're extending, going out of the building, putting on extension to the building so that we can have space. We're doing so much, our demand is so high. So at present, spacing is a problem for us, but we're still manufacturing. So we're working on that as well. Well, COVID-19 has touched us all, touched the world, and our business was not missed. We were touched greatly. With borders being closed, it was difficult for us to get raw materials and containers from Suriname and Barbados. That was a serious thing for us. So with flights being grounded, we were unable to source raw materials from the US, Barbados, or even Trinidad, and they're so close, but it was difficult for us to do so. Prices on all the stuff that we use to manufacture. For that reason, we had to lay off 90% of our staff, and that caused a great impact on us as well. Also, it caused us to have a backlog on our loans because we're paying loans and so on. So we understand that the pandemic has hit us, and I know everybody, all the the entrepreneurs out there can say that they have had some amount of difficulty because of the pandemic as well. Okay, the outlook. Our target is to be on every shelf and every store in Guyana. Because lack of machineries and equipment and such like, we're unable to produce as much and to keep ourselves on the shelves. Mind you, we would like to be in every supermarket, every salon, every bar, barber shops, every little store there is around town. So because of lack of materials and such like, it was difficult for us. We do a little exporting, as you heard in the video. We do a little exporting to the US, to Trinidad, to the UK as well. These are mostly to small salons, small private entities. We're looking forward, and we know at some time we will get there, to exporting in large amounts, a wholesale basis as well, to regional and international markets. Good. So we at Cheryl's Cosmetics, there's so much. I know I have 9 minutes. I try to pack so much in the 9 minutes. And we're open to investors. At present, we're looking to grow. We have all our materials. We know what we have to do. We have our formulas. We have it all. But because of lack of finance and materials and all of that, we're open to investors. Folks who are willing to come on board with us, to work with us, to help us to grow. As you notice, we make 15 different products, and because of certain things, we're only being able to produce a small amount and not one of each, but just a few of each. So the folks who are out there who's listening and who wants to come on board and is willing to come on board with us, we welcome you. Guyana has so much to offer, and we're eager, my staff and I, we're eager to work and to get our products out there. So yes, that's just a little from us at Cheryl's Cosmetics.
Thank you, Cheryl. Now, like every startup business, I mean, there are growing pains, and but these growing pains create opportunities, as you've heard the appeal from Cheryl. So let's help her. On your screen you will see our first poll question. So what should Cheryl do? There are 2 questions in the poll box. Click your answer, hit the submit button, and let's get started.
Hello, everyone. This is Ben from Guyana Development Initiative. I'm running this on the back end, and I'm happy to report that we have our first respondents. Let's hear your thoughts and keep sending in your responses to this poll. I'll give you about a minute more to respond, and then I'll share the results with you.
Now, while you're responding, I know that you are thinking of all of the challenges, but also let's hear of those solutions, because there are plenty of solutions. So I'm encouraging you to think of Cheryl's business as if it were your own. And what would you like to see? What would you like to have? What kind of support? So in another few minutes, or actually seconds.
All right, I will be closing the polling in about 15 more seconds. I've already got almost 100 responses on this. Let's hear those final responses. And thank you for sharing your advice.
Thank you, guys.
All right, I'm closing polling now. And now on your screen, you should see the results. Very interesting. The most popular response, more than half of people responding say that Cheryl should apply for a loan through the Small Business Bureau to secure financing. And the most popular results for creative marketing strategies, equally popular, are connecting with an online marketplace and developing local online ordering and home delivery options. Thank you for responding, and keep an eye out for the next set of polls.
All right, thank you. Am I to reply? Am I to say anything to that?
Well, you can thank them, but I'll also thank the participants for the feedback. And let's hear from you for a second.
Okay. Yes. SBB. We were part of SBB, and prior to last year, I myself. This is a quick one. I'm a nurse. I'm a registered nurse. So what happened? I was barred from certain things because of being a nurse. Being a public servant, they were saying I couldn't get a loan, I couldn't get a grant because I'm a public servant. So I have two full-time jobs that I stay, my business as well as being a nurse. So to answer the question about SBB, that had barred us for some time, but I understand for this year that's no more. So we were going to work on that particular aspect. Just wanted to clear that up.
Well, thank you for your feedback. I know we are solving problems, we are addressing challenges, and so we look forward to working with you, Cheryl, and supporting you through this journey.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Let's move on to our next presenter from one of Guyana's most successful large-scale agro-processor. Just think of ice cream and all its flavors, and that would be Robert Ross from Sterling Products.
Household names, quality products, and renowned brands, Guyana has them all when it comes to large agro-processors. From Eldorado's award-winning rums, which are aged to perfection, to Banks DIH with its brewery Fresh Banks beer. Sterling Products Limited is among some of the most popular large-scale agro-processors in Guyana and is famous for brands such as Igloo Ice Cream, Sunnyvale Butter, and Yogurt Yogurt.
Okay, good morning to everyone. All protocols established. My name is Robert Ross. I'm the Quality Assurance and Business Development Manager at Sterling Products Limited. Ben, you can put up the presentation. Thank you. All right. So we are speaking today about tapping opportunities in the value chain at Sterling Products Limited. And as I mentioned, my name. Next slide, Ben. Right, so our main location is at Providence on the east bank of Demerara. Many of our activities can be tracked on our Facebook page as well as our website. Then, Sterling Products Limited has been around since the year 1954, and we are a major manufacturer and distributor of products, household products. One of the things about us is that we view ourselves not only as a leading manufacturer, but as providing essential services to our customers, our employees, both locally and our regional communities. Next, Ben. So today we're talking about these opportunities, and one of the potential for us is the issue of fresh milk produced locally and would be a key ingredient in two of our major brands, our Igloo ice cream and our Yogurt yogurt. We see potential for strengthening this value chain for persons to come in on board and meeting the necessary standards for supply. Next, Ben. So because milk is an important ingredient, there are a couple of things we examine from time to time, some key requirements in terms of the issues of the risk, how is it regulated, and what is necessary for this product to be supplied to us. Currently, most of our milk that is used in our production is imported from overseas, and it's guaranteed by certification. However, for the local industry, this is something that will need to be addressed. Milk is a high-risk product. We have issues of pathogens such as Salmonella, Listeria monocytogenes. We have issues of antibiotics, hormones, which cause certain foodborne illnesses and other disease. Milk is regulated by 2 acts locally, and also there are a number of other international and regional initiatives, such as CAFSA, that there's high regulation on the issue of milk and milk products. So we have the Food and Drug Act, which stipulates the quality requirements for milk, as well as the Veterinary Health Act of 2011, which talks about milk being free from certain things like bovine brucellosis, foot-and-mouth disease, and tuberculosis. So it's a highly regulated area, and we need to have these things addressed if we're going to interact with the local community. Ben? All right, so the local dairy industry, there are certain driving factors, as mentioned. We are very focused, we are very customer focused, and also regulatory compliant. We ensure that whatever products we produce are compliant to certain requirements. And so we know from that perspective, issues of quality, food safety, veterinary health, and even affordability is important things that our customers are looking for. So in turn, if we are interacting or dealing with any value chain, issues of reliable supply, consistent quality, and even costs is important factors in terms of such collaboration. However, with regards to the local dairy industry, this remains a challenge. We have done some studies and we have identified some of the areas, and I note the minister mentioned some of these in his presentation. Things, attractive market pricing, reliable and accessible market, standards on regulatory compliance, and even support for things like government support, grants, and tax concession. And until these are properly addressed, there remain challenges to the supply chain. Next, Ben. So this is the current status of that industry. We estimate that the local dairy industry is about 8.7 billion US dollars, 8.7 billion Guyana dollars. And of that, 95% of it is what we consider imported from external markets. There lies a lot of opportunities for us to change that balance. And we're saying that there's a possibility that this market could be shared in 50-50, at least in its initial stage, where the issues that are affecting the local industries are addressed. Note in this supply chain, we have identified the weak linkages that reduces collaboration. We're saying that the lack of sufficient quality and quantity of fresh milk, the lack of quality and veterinary health certification for milk, and note this is a requirement for us as an exporter of our product. We need to give such guarantees. And for instance, there are no infrastructure for things like milking stations, storage, transport of fresh milk to, let's say, from the farm to the factory. So those are issues that will need to be addressed in order for strengthening of that collaborative chain. Okay? So we have identified what we say are 5 key gaps in the process that can help strengthen this value chain. One of it is, for instance, the cost of feeding. It's exuberant. It has driven the cost of local production for fresh milk to a point that is very high. And there are studies that have been done to demonstrate that ammoniating things like rice straw, rice bran, brewer's grain, fish and shrimp silage can actually reduce the cost of feeding to the animals. With regards to the infrastructure, as we mentioned before, the need for provision for milking stations, cooling and storage facilities, and transportation to the various farming communities, maybe in the form of a co-op that can strengthen the distribution of moving the milk from the farm to the factory. Access to finance, that was mentioned before, and we're saying because some of these farmers are small, certain loans need to be made available, low collateral and a competitive interest rate for agribusinesses will lead to, more persons accessing and developing their operations to the level that is required. We're seeing strengthening of the research and extension services that is currently offered from GLDA and even NARI at this point as a solution to that. And of course, testing and certification. We need accredited test labs and veterinary health certification for guarantees on these raw material as an input into our processing. Thank you, Ben. Next. So this is the current state of that industry for milk. It's currently, local fresh milk is retail at $100 per pint right now. We have taken several initiatives over the years to try to enter into a contractual arrangement with local fresh milk producers with the intention of cushioning what we will say the fluctuating market prices, global market prices, because from time to time those prices do go up and there's no guarantee in terms of maintaining your price point. And so if we have a stable local fresh milk industry where we have entered into certain contractual arrangement, then obviously there will be tremendous benefit for stability of businesses. So farmers are very insistent that they do not want to enter into such arrangements because of the price that they currently can retail on the market for, which is very uncompetitive for us when we examine it. So the current cost of production for these farmers, when we did some studies, it's due to a number of factors like the low scale of production, the high fixed costs, and high variable costs. Next. So we have come up with a proposal where through a number of initiatives such as specialty formulation of low-cost feed, we mentioned about ammoniated rice straw and so on, which can boost the quantity of milk that is produced by one cow, as well as increasing the milk fat content, which is a very important factor in determining the value of the milk. We talk about improving the animal husbandry process of breeding in to stronger cows into the process, and of course technical support to improve their operations. In our calculations, this is able to reduce their cost of production, as was previously shown on the previous slide, which was around $20 to $25, can now be reduced to $10 to $15, and they are able to then sell that product with a good profit at $35 to $40, and under a guaranteed contract, which will make it very competitive for us. It allows for expanding of economies of scale because of the quantities of milk and the number of products that we can utilize the product in. I think it will augur well for the sector in itself. I'd like to thank you for listening to me. There's so much I tried to pack into this 9 minutes. Hope I was very clear.
Thank you, Robert. No doubt we have seen several opportunities here. And I am reminded of the Litco experience, and I'm wondering what happened there. That would be an interesting case study, because as a little child, I know my dad was involved in that project at Melissa on the highway, and we had the best milk ever. So, and our next presenter, we're gonna look at how we interact with innovation and technology at work. It's always amazing to see that. And as a country that has depended heavily on traditional and simple ways of doing things, I know it's going to be very exciting to see what can be achieved when we have a mixture of innovation and technology in agriculture. So let's hear from Kapil Mahabir and his wife Yani from Plimpton Farms, how that works.
89% of the world's soils are not well suited for agriculture, like this white sand in Guyana. At Plimpton Farms, we are turning this infertile soil into farms. Combining world-class drip irrigation technology with organic compost, we are successfully growing tropical produce at a commercial scale. This means a lot to our community, where economic opportunities are few and mostly unavailable to women. We are proud of our social impact in creating jobs in remote rural communities and connecting small farmers to export markets. Our technology today can convert 10% of Guyana's sandy soil into farmland to make all sandy soil available for agriculture production here and potentially everywhere else in the world. We are pioneering outdoor hydroponic methods using sand as a substrate. Without the cost of greenhouses required for traditional hydroponic systems, this method, using bags that cost 30 US cents each, has the potential to be widely adopted to sandy soils around the world.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Kapil Mohabir, and I am a co-founder along with my wife of Plimpton Farms. So the video you just saw was from about 3 years ago, and basically we started Plimpton Farms in 2012. And the idea was basically just to start a commercial level farm in Guyana. And would it be possible to compete in the export market? Over the last 8 years or so, what we've discovered is that it's actually quite hard to farm in Guyana, despite looking around and seeing great sun and all of that. The conditions here are actually pretty challenging, which if you ask any farmer, they'll tell you. And it puts you at a pretty significant disadvantage to growing specifically vegetables. There are other crops that do well with the amount of rain here, like rice and sugar, but not most vegetables. So what we've had to do is just try to innovate around that. And so to kind of give you some context, by the way, I don't have a formal presentation, but to give you context, our major thing that we do is chili peppers. So just to give you a size of what we do, we grow about 250,000 pounds of chili peppers a year. We buy about 150,000 pounds of chili peppers from small farmers. So I think we are the largest grower and integrated processor of chili peppers in the Caribbean. So to just use chili peppers as an example, if you grow in the regular soil, the yield is about somewhere between 300 and 500 pounds a week. So about 12,000 pounds on a crop in Guyana, which is a good yield for Guyana, but not if you're exporting. So just a quick note on exportation. If you're going after an export market, you of course have to compete with everyone globally, or at least everyone in your region. So how competitive does your production costs have to be? Well, there's sort of a very general rule. If you look at containers, say you're shipping everything in containers, it costs about $4,000 US to ship a container almost anywhere in the world. You can usually fit 40,000 pounds of product into a container. So it's very simple math. You need to be within 10 cents per pound of the lowest cost producer to be able to compete in the global market, right? So you can't have yields that are half of what the global market has. You just won't be able to compete. So in any case, when we started the yield, and we're on the Linden Highway, which has white sand, which is even more difficult than growing in the clay. So when we started, the yield was about 300 pounds or 12,000 pounds in a season. And the video that you saw, we're doing drip irrigation stuff and putting it in bags, and that gets you up to about 20,000 pounds per season. And what we found is that the rain basically comes and kills everything. So if you're farming and you have a great crop and it's producing well, and it starts raining, it rains so hard and so long in Guyana that it can really damage your entire crop. So what we're testing now, and I guess you can see it in the background, is greenhouses. We're trying to do that as cheaply as possible. So this greenhouse that I'm standing in is a design that we've done that uses local hardwood, that uses natural ventilation to grow crops. And here we've gone to, let's see, about 40,000 pounds per crop. So a huge difference and a really competitive actually on the high end of the yield curve globally. So basically, that's our sort of agriculture innovation part of the business. Our business really focuses on three things. It's agriculture innovation in Guyana, using as much as possible, local materials. We grow hydroponically. So maybe I can show you here without getting all. Let me see. I don't know how to flip the camera around. Let me just show you the bags. So we grow in these bags, these polyethylene bags with fertilizer water being dripped in. Instead of buying expensive cocoa peat from other parts of the world, what's in that bag is a mix of burnt rice hull, regular yellow rice hull, and some sand, which gives you enough of a substrate that actually competes well with the expensive cocoa peat. So if you had to buy cocoa peat to grow in, it would be about $1 million Guyanese an acre. And this stuff is just sort of agriculture waste in Guyana if you can get access to it, which you can. It's just the cost of delivery. So we try our best to use the stuff that's here because we're really focused on our solutions being adaptable for small farmers. I grew up on a small farm in the Quarantine, and so our focus is on small farmers. To that end, I mentioned that we buy about 150,000 pounds of peppers from small farmers throughout the year. So that's really our main engagement with small farmers. We do work with some small farmers individually and provide technical assistance and seedlings up here on the highway. And the third part of the business is really community impact, which is generating jobs on the Linden Highway. The majority of our workers here are women, and I think a couple of years ago we did a survey and asked, what's the best alternative to working at Plimpton? And we were really humbled because I think 90% of the ladies came back and said there was no employment alternative. So I think sort of having an impact on the community and making sure that whatever we do in our business, it's not just focused on the product, but focused on the people around us. So it's been 8 years now. It's been really challenging, but in the last year or two, we've had a couple of breakthroughs. So we feel good about it. Market, I know part of the webinar is to talk about challenges and things like that. I think markets are an interesting challenge. We're 100% export, so we currently don't sell anything in Guyana. To develop those customers in that market, you really do have to, by definition, get on planes and establish relationships with people, which we luckily have been able to do. But I think one of the things one should consider is how big is the market you're going after? Because even the diaspora market, if you're going after the diaspora market, it's actually not that big. So if you want to employ a bunch of people, you want to generate a business that generates sales of, say, I don't know, $5 million a year, even the diaspora market might not be good enough for that, because most markets within the diaspora are less than $5 million, and you're not going to be able to get the entire market. So what we're focused on now is going after larger, more mainstream markets, which may be more difficult, but I think in order to kind of take Guyanese agriculture to the next level, that's what you have to do. So yeah, I would say the number one challenge is the growing conditions here. I'm happy to talk to anyone about that. We're doing some stuff that I think is working, or some of it's working. The second challenge, I think, is just market and figuring that out, not saying anything new. But in relation to that, I think a few people mentioned it already, including Sophie, which is, just the time to export. So we do a processed product, so it doesn't affect us as much, but we tried doing fresh product and exporting to Canada, and it was really challenging because I think she said it's 200 hours to export, and that's kind of been our experience as well. So if that could be cut down, the other thing that's important, I think, to farmers is who are export oriented is just the availability of air freight. So there are a lot of new flights because of the oil industry, and I think it would be good if those airlines were mandated to carry agriculture products. That would be a huge boon to the industry. Another sort of challenge that's sort of systematic is just the quality of chemicals that's available to the Guyanese farmer. So there are a lot of generics, and those generics, the concentration of the chemical is not what it says on the label. So you end up having to spray more of it, and it's not as effective. If you look at the big chemical companies, you know, the process here to get the stuff in is just too onerous for the size of the market. So what do I mean by that? You know, Dow Chemical is not going to submit all the documentation that's necessary here for a market the size of Guyana. So we need a lighter weight process that can bring chemicals from, I don't know, jurisdictions that are listed, such as Florida or other places, that just gets good chemicals to our farmers, so they're not taken advantage of by these sort of lower quality chemicals. Yeah, I think that's it. I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity to talk this morning. We are an open farm. Before COVID, we hosted a lot of visits. We host the University of Guyana agriculture students quite a lot. So if you're interested in Plimpton Farms, you can go to our website and send us an email at info@plimptonfarms.com. That's info@plimptonfarms.com. We're happy to chat with anyone. Last thing I will say is, you know, just we're really focused on young people, and it's been a pleasant surprise having sort of lived outside Guyana and coming back, that the average age on the farm is 20 years old. So everyone who's managing is like 22. So that's been a great surprise, and we really enjoy working with young people. So if you have any questions, just shoot them in the question box in the Zoom. But again, thank you all so much, and it's a pleasure to be here and talk a little bit about what we're doing.
Thank you, Kapil, for that incredible story. And no doubt the audience is recognizing how important it is to focus on the economics of the venture and how science and technology impacts, and as well, not being daunted by the challenge of the white sand, how you can, you know, adapt within your environment to meet that international expectation. So thank you. And then we're also going to be having another poll question, folks. So please answer the question that Ben will put up on the screen.
All right, the poll question is up. This one is a multiple choice one focused on the major issues impacting the development of the agribusiness cluster in Guyana. We want to hear what you see are those major issues. We have 10 options. Please pick as many of them as you see appropriate. I'll give you about another minute, and then I will share the results.
And while you're answering those questions, I mean, it's very interesting to look at the difference the shade house made in terms of the yield. I mean, doubled the yield in one season. I think that's incredible. And no doubt our forestry suppliers will be happy to know that that's an opportunity for them in agriculture besides just providing the raw materials.
All right, I'm going to give you about another 15 seconds to respond to this. We've already got over 110 responses. This is really great. We want to hear the last of you who still have not hit submit yet, and I will share in a moment. All right, I am closing polling now. So as you can see on your screens, we've got a lot of issues that have been identified. More than the most popular responses, 3/4 of you responded saying that cost and reliability of electricity and access to markets are the most important issues. And right behind that, access to finance, we see a number of other issues that have been identified. And thank you again for sharing. We'll have one more poll later in the third session, and I will turn it back to Carol.
Thank you, Ben. In this next session, we're going to introduce you to some expertise who have been working in the industry. And the first is going to be focused on the diaspora involvement in Guyana's agribusiness sector. We're going to have two presenters, Mr. Wayne Ford and Kofi Dalrymple. Now, Wayne is the founder and president of the United Guyanese Diaspora Global Network. He is a business development consultant and entrepreneur with many years of experience. Wayne has always played a role in community development and fostering positive social change for Guyana. He's the president of Guyanese Cultural Network of Tampa Bay. He holds a master's in public policy degree and is currently a doctoral candidate in business administration with a specialization in energy management. And his co-presenter is Kofi Dalrymple. Kofi is a senior level engineer and scientist, provided subject matter expertise in process development, technology transfer, food and biological manufacturing, and biotechnology operations. He has more than 10 years of specialized experience in fermentation processes, bioethanol, and veterinary medicines. He has a bachelor's degree of engineering from the University of Guyana, a master's from the University of the West Indies, and a doctorate from the University of South Florida. So help me welcome Wayne Ford and Dr. Kofi Dalrymple.
Hello. Good morning, and I thank you for the opportunity. I'm delighted to be here to present to you on this webinar. I'd like to thank the members of GMSA, the Honorable Minister, entrepreneurs, and attendees. We're going to go through quickly in 5 minutes, like a fire hose, how the diaspora, the role of the diaspora organizations, and challenges to access to finance, which we heard was a common theme this morning, as well as a couple of recommendations. And I may not get through all of that in the 5 minutes, so just bear with me as I run through that. Recently, in his inauguration address, the President, Ali, indicated that he wants to embrace the diaspora. Recently, the Minister, Hugh Todd, Minister of Foreign Affairs, indicated that he wanted to be committed to embark on an aggressive strategy to engage the diaspora by creating policies and bringing a diaspora unit back to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and so on. So that has been a wonderful initiative in that regard. And based on what they have said, there's a lot that we need to chat about in terms of the role of the diaspora. Diasporas contribute to the homeland in many ways, including remittances, capital markets, direct investment, knowledge transfer, return of talent, nostalgic trade, which would apply here, tourism, philanthropic endeavors, and diaspora advocacy. Most people recognize that remittances form the greater part of most diasporas' engagement, because there's a channel to do that that's very easy, that's set up by Western Union and other platforms. So I just listed a couple of the top 5 countries that send remittances back to their homeland based on data in 2019. India with 82 billion, China with 70 billion, Mexico with 38 billion, Philippines 35 billion, Egypt 26 billion. Guyana is not on that list. But it's interesting when you compare, because India's 72 billion represents only about 2.6% of GDP. Guyanese sent home about 375 million, that's in 2019, depending on who gave you the data, and 450 million in 2013. And that represented about 13 to 17% of GDP. So the Guyanese diaspora do more for Guyana through remittances. And they can also do more if certain things are established. The Guyanese diaspora could play a more significant role if there's a robust diaspora institution and a diaspora engagement strategy. Many countries, in order to tap into the potential of their diasporas, have created institutions to facilitate these ties. And these institutions are ministries, sub-ministries, national organizations, local level operations, and quasi-government operations for diasporas. For instance, China, Mexico, and the Philippines have multiple diaspora institutions at various levels of government. 26 countries have separate diaspora ministries, including Armenia, India, Haiti, Indonesia, and many others. About 17 countries have sub-ministry diaspora institutions, including Brazil, China, Germany, Netherlands, Mexico, Peru, and others. So the Guyanese diaspora can play a role once we have the structured mechanism to engage the diaspora in a more effective way through the various thematic areas that diasporas get engaged in, other than just remittances. Because Guyanese living abroad still have strong emotional ties to the homeland and would like to contribute in various ways once those channels and avenues are opened for them to do that. One of the interesting things that, one of the themes that we heard today was the challenges to the access of finance. And I just want to quickly talk about what an IDB report found in 2018 after interviewing, doing a study with about 380 small and medium-sized enterprises in Guyana. They found about 60% of the businesses are not registered by the NIS, the GRA, the deeds of registry, and other areas, which makes it very difficult for lending institutions to get engaged and to find these operations risk-free to do lending. So based on that, the diaspora can play a critical role in helping to mentor, partner with enterprises, improve business registration to gain access to finance, and to do other things in terms of helping businesses to understand the need for registering and recognizing themselves as a bona fide legal entity. Recommendations. Because Guyana does not have a diaspora institution at the government level of a ministry or a sub-ministry or local or quasi-ministry, there are many recommendations as we go forward. So this is just a minuscule amount of things that can be done, should be done, possibly to get the diaspora more engaged to assist in small and medium-sized businesses, development in Guyana, and all the other areas that the diaspora have expertise to assist in. One is to develop a robust diaspora institution, craft and implement diaspora strategies, provide training and mentoring from the diaspora bonds for education, health, and infrastructure, promote entrepreneurship from the diaspora, and I think something that is relevant to everyone here, liberalize banking regulations to attract the diaspora, as well as strengthen international cooperation to facilitate transnational mobilization of assets that would enable diasporas to partner, to invest, and to be a part of the process. And with that, I think I was under 5 minutes, maybe I have 10 seconds left. So we're all involved, we're all consumed, as Martin Carter said. Thank you. Over to you, Kofi.
Thank you, Wayne. Special thanks to GMSA and the IDB for inviting us to participate in the webinar today. And we acknowledge all of the dignitaries, the minister, and others who are present at the webinar today, and all those who are listening in. Thank you. I always remember this statement from my professor when I did my master's. He says the world, excuse me, has problems and the universities have departments. And what I took away from this was if we're gonna really solve problems, we have to work together. We couldn't do it within one group. We had to do it collectively. You know, I grew up in Shortville on the west coast of Demerara, and as was read, I went to the University of Guyana, and then went to the University of the West Indies, and then pursued further studies later. You know, even as a child, we grew up, you know, farming, and you know, there's just an appreciation for producing our own food. I think there's an important thing here. We're talking about knowledge transfer. As I listened to a lot of the presentations today, it's clear that as folks in the diaspora, there is quite a bit for us to learn, if I may use the term us, I never really see a distinction between Guyanese living overseas and Guyanese living at home. However, in this case, there's quite a bit to learn as I listen to Plimpton Farms in Arayas. I think that just a wealth of knowledge and information that, that is being produced that we can learn so much from. When I think of knowledge transfer, these are 4 goals that I think of: facilitating this exchange of information, as we're seeing here today, really working together, as Wayne highlighted, in terms of creating a team learning culture for continuous improvement, and then reducing development time. And I'll show a little bit of where I think we are doing work, where Guyanese are doing work overseas and Guyanese are doing work in Guyana, and where we can collaborate to ensure that we're not reinventing the wheel, and there are things that we're learning. Even as I think of someone like Cheryl, for example, I know of Guyanese who are doing similar sort of efforts overseas, and there's opportunities for learning there. And then 4, really to just expand this learning network to access knowledge and additional markets. And so I think this really is an untapped resource that provides an opportunity for real collaborative engagement. So that there's this normal, sort of formalized process. There are a number of universities in the US. And what's key to this is that there are, I was in Guyana, I'm in Guyana very often, and I was there recently when the university had sort of a return of diaspora academics, if I may call it that. But it was sort of interesting and heartwarming to see that spread throughout the world and throughout the United States were diaspora academics at a range of universities. And I've got listed here, for those who may be interested, universities that have specific courses in agriculture and food processing, programs. Ohio State University, actually one of my friends from the University of Guyana is a professor there. We've got close ties with the University of Florida, Texas A&M, and the University of Nebraska, which I actually don't live too far from. Technology is another big area. I think that there could be some need for opportunities for collaboration, and that's manufacturing process technology. I myself have worked in the area of process engineering, which I'll touch on just a little bit. Also, technology brokerage is something that I'm interested in, how to apply technology that we have sort of learned and bring it to the local situation in Guyana, and things that we're learning in Guyana that we can bring sort of outside Guyana as well. And then research and development, which I think in many ways is sort of self-explanatory. I've been involved in the animal health industry, both from vaccine perspective in particular, working both as a scientist and an engineer. Now I work as a consultant in that industry, and I see a lot of opportunities here for engaging as someone who is doing work in Guyana, want to be more involved. Prior to that, this is a picture of some work that we've done here in the U.S. This is a large-scale algal field, algae production field, which we were using for fuel-grade ethanol. And then towards the latter years of this startup company, there was a transition from producing fuel-grade ethanol to things like proteins and natural colorants and food and so forth. And so there's a wealth of knowledge, even as I look at Plimpton Farms, where we try to deploy this on land that otherwise would not be cultivated, when we're using these lands to produce either fuel and or food on a really large scale. So I think this is an opportunity to transfer some of the knowledge that we've learned from projects like these here in the US and elsewhere. We built one of these as well in India. And there was an investor out of India, and one of these farms was also built out in India. And so there's sort of information that can be shared there and taken to Guyana. Guyana's sort of a really good place as well for projects like these. Just wanted to mention that even as part of that work, we were recognized in terms of winning a green chemistry award from the EPA here, because that work was utilizing carbon dioxide. And so it had a real good offset for carbon mitigation for climate change. Lastly, what I'll say here is the role of the process engineer, not just because I'm one, but as I look at some of the presentations today, and I'm thinking about, if you want to build a house, you go to an architect, and that, if you want to develop a process, A process engineer would be the person you want to go to really help with your process and specifying equipment. And I just had a list of things here that as a process engineer, I can help with, or others who are trained in this field can certainly bring some of those skills to folks who are working in this area. And a long list of things, but particularly helping folks go from an idea, developing process, speccing out equipment, doing process description, mass balance, what do you do with the waste, where do all the materials go, looking at things like utility and scheduling, piping and instrumentation diagrams, and a range of other deliverables that you can be assisted with. Thank you. I think that's my 5 minutes. I may have gone over, but thank you for listening.
Thank you, Kofi. And I know that we have heard quite specifically how the diaspora can play an important role. And your process engineering examples brought back great memories in terms of, any optimization that we need to consider. Hey, you can't get to those numbers that Plimpton Farms talk about without focusing on processes. Correct. So thank you for that. Next, I will introduce Dr. Eric Hanson, who is president of the Economic Transformations Group, a sustainable economic development consultancy based in New York and Silicon Valley. He's an expert on sustainable regional economic development, enterprise, and value chain competitiveness, and most recently specializing in the blue economy of Guyana and the Caribbean. He has worked in several projects in Guyana, including the National Competitiveness Strategy, Public Sector Dialogue, and Agricultural Diversification. So let me welcome Dr. Hanson.
Thank you, Carol. Pleasure to be here with you all. I'm reporting in from another agricultural stronghold of the United States, Iowa, where I'm here visiting temporarily. Honored to be with you all here and appreciate the opportunity to join distinguished guests, the minister, representatives, and with all of you participating from Guyana and all around the world. What I'd like to do today is to share with you some more of the big picture context within which SME and agriculture in particular is operating in Guyana. Many of you are certainly aware of the bigger trends, but I thought I would share with you some of the findings that we had come up with last year in doing some work looking at opportunities for SMEs in the context of the oil and gas boom. And of course, now we have the context of COVID pandemic and that's impacts and how that's both offering challenges and opportunities for Guyana moving forward here. The oil boom is significant, as you all know. It has produced a number of very important findings, discoveries by ExxonMobil over the years that's leading to tremendous production, and that all has started as of late last year and early this year. And now ExxonMobil has up to 18 discoveries, and Tullow has 3 discoveries now in the area. So we're talking about really significant oil resources that is having an enormous impact on this relatively tiny economy. And it's actually affecting the entire region. And we're likely to see some continuation of all of this, which will have significant impact and opportunity for Guyana, and also represent a number of challenges, as you know, from resource curse issues. And that will have to be handled very carefully in order to have a positive impact on agriculture, in particular for Guyana to be exporting. Now, the oil and gas development has got significant opportunities, and it will be developing it in terms of different areas. First of all, there's the impacts that are from the direct oil and gas investment itself. The second is from the government spending the revenues that we'll be receiving. And the third is really the impact that the rest of the economy can have because of the oil growth and the impact on the economy. The investment by the oil and gas companies itself is massive. And to some extent, you can see that already taking shape in lots of parts of Guyana, but significantly offshore. The exploration costs are one thing, generating about $500 million per well. The development costs of each of the discoveries is significant given the sophistication of the various activities. So Liza 1 is 4.4 billion, Liza 2, 7.6. If we just look at the first 6 discoveries, we're talking at close to $50 billion in development costs to make that happen. And then after the life of the well is finished, we've got decommissioning costs. So it's a significant amount of investment that is being spent to develop this resource. And as many of you know, this is almost like the technology of a lunar landing. We're talking about doing some things on the seafloor a mile below and drilling down another mile or so beyond that and capturing the oil and the gas and doing that in a sustainable way. So much of the sophistication required to exploit the gas and oil is going to be done by major players from around the world. And the question is how much can Guyanese companies benefit by all of that? And you know, there are certainly some Guyanese companies that are operating as local suppliers, but in terms of the direct impacts and even some of the initial indirect impacts, we're talking about relatively limited number of Guyanese companies able to participate in such a sophisticated sector. So we're looking at what are the other impacts, the multiplier effects and others that can really benefit that. So if we look at the kinds of goods and services that are needed to produce this oil and gas, you know, there are many services that Guyanese companies can provide. And right at the top of the list here is the food and catering services, which has direct impact for Guyanese companies to participate in that. Now, it requires getting standards up to very, very high international standards to be able to participate in this industry because of the requirements of the major companies and the ability to offer, so, you know, reliable delivery and all the rest of that. So this is an enormous opportunity for Guyana to participate in that. There are certainly many companies in Guyana who can offer some goods and services, and catering and other kinds of food services are clearly important. Now already Exxon's BAI Center for Local Business Development is supporting companies, Guyanese companies, to participate in the core oil and gas activities. But what's really required is we need support for other sectors as well, including all the impacts for agriculture and agribusiness and grocery stores and food health systems to hospitals and schools and all that kind of things. Have got tremendous opportunities. Now, the second area is probably got more long-term impact on an opportunity for Guyanese companies. The key element here is that we've got oil revenues being generated. Liza 1 is expected to generate 7.9 billion in government revenues, and that may need to be adjusted slightly in terms of the the oil price fluctuations that we've seen in a while, but it's on that order of magnitude. And from that, what we see is that an additional 100 to 500 million could be allocated by the government for various infrastructure projects. And so when we take a look at all the, well, just the first 6 oil discoveries and their estimated oil revenues to be generated, we can see that as they add up all together here, we're creating a huge amount of oil revenues for government spending, available for government spending of various kinds. And already we know that Liza 1 has been producing now for the last months, and there's been three offloads, and so we expect that process to be going on and creating opportunities for all kinds of infrastructure investments where the construction industry will be a major player in all that, and the growth and the implications for that will give tremendous opportunities for the food value chain to further develop along all the lines that the companies that have been presented here so far in terms of the inputs, the milk trains, all the various things will then provide opportunities for other industries. When tourism gets back on its feet and rolling after the COVID recovery period, we'll see tremendous opportunities again for food inputs for that. Business service sectors will also be major beneficiaries of a lot of that infrastructure development. Now, the key current question is, what is this impact of COVID? And as has been already reported, many companies and farmers have been severely impacted by a dropping in markets and in ability to do activities. And we're seeing that happen not only in Guyana, but across the Caribbean with tremendous drops in GDP as the economies have been declining. And part of the question that is facing Guyana here is, how can we use COVID as an opportunity to reorient and restructure some of activities here? And in the Caribbean, the over-reliance on tourism, and in particular cruise tourism, has shown its impacts. The dependence on imported food, as we know that Guyana and most Caribbean countries are challenged by that overabundance of activity. And the question is, how can Guyana reduce its dependence on imported food? And what agricultural products could Guyana expand its exports into the Caribbean region to take advantage of the opportunity of this COVID period? So already mentioned is the question about local food systems and security issues. And we're seeing that food security, reliance on local food systems and livelihoods is clearly an opportunity, and we need to do that both in terms of meeting a growing domestic demand, but also looking at opportunities for being able to export. So primarily, as has been mentioned, we've got this huge opportunity to engage in supporting the delivery of foods and goods to the local market, and lessening this dependence on imported goods, and there's opportunities for doing that. And in regional markets, as we've just mentioned, the CARICOM is important. So first of all, looking at what Guyana currently imports, there are opportunities, $250 million worth of opportunities to be able to zero in on that. And there are studies that have been done that point out what are some specific areas that can be done. Then we also see that already many products from Guyana are being exported. And we've seen some of the players already, as in Plimpton Farms, but other players, Sterling Products as well, that have already got export markets. If we take a look at the detailed opportunity here, we can see where the primary market is a lot of neighboring countries in Guyana, but also the US, sometimes the UK. But here is where there are opportunities to build on that. Now, just in closing, I just want to say that having some export strategy that can be devised that's market-led and consumer-driven and oriented towards the 22 markets that we've just identified there, this kind of an activity is going to make a lot of sense, particularly building on studies that have already been done. We need to organize trade missions so that companies can show the rest of the world what Guyana can produce. And most important of all, we need to provide consistent follow-up support to companies. So how are they dealing with all of those issues? And what we have been finding is that SME accelerator activities that are buyer-led driven can be excellent pilot programs to get things to start. And the focus is on what is the market demand, not what you produce, but what can be demanded. And the key activities are to identify some promising high growth SMEs and really help them to zero in on some strategies. One example would be to help develop a food catering business and what are the specific needs that they need in order to be able to grow their market. In neighboring Suriname, we've been able to create a program there that identified some key opportunities, and in this case here with acai production and helping local acai outgrowers increase their ability to do that with a specific market in mind here. In conclusion, Guyana's got the necessary elements to be able to pull it all together. And the key thing is really social capital, committed leadership, shared vision and strategy, early action with pilots that lead to quick results, and most of all, collaboration to make it happen. So looking forward to discussing things further with you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Hanson. You have given us some very important, specific frameworks and all right, our next presenter is Ken Lohento, and we are going to be focused on digitization and involvement of technology in the agricultural value landscape. So Ken Lohento is a digital architecture, entrepreneurial, and ICT for development strategist. And for about 20 years, he has designed and managed national and international programs related to digitalization of food security, socio-economic development, and youth in agriculture. At CTA, the Technical Center for Agriculture and Rural Cooperation, he oversaw grants and coordinated initiatives related to ICT in agricultural value chains and youth entrepreneurship in agriculture in African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries. Okay. Ken won international awards for 2 of his initiatives, and he holds a master's in information sciences, a master's in business administration, both awarded with distinction. So let's
Hello?
I can hear you, Ken.
Yeah, it seems that I have some challenge with the internet, but I will try, and then hopefully everything will work well. So, hi everyone. My name is Ken Lorento from, I've been working for CTA, the technical sector for agricultural and rural cooperation for about 10 years now. And I'm particularly in charge of promoting digital technologies for development, and also to support agricultural development and support youth entrepreneurship in agriculture. So I will be sharing my screen. Give me one moment. Let me try here. Please, Carol, can you put on my screen? I'm on my iPad and I'm having some challenge with.
All right. Why don't we ask Ben to do so? Great.
Okay, thank you very much. So please the next slide. Yeah, so CTA is an international organization that has started operation about 35 years now. And just for what it worth, we will be closing operation this year. And we have been mainly working to promote value chain development, to promote youth entrepreneurship, digitalization in agriculture, and also working to support climate smart agriculture. And we are based in the Netherlands. Next, please. This is part of the impact that we have achieved over the years, but I will let you discover it when you have the screen, the slide. Please, next. Just briefly before I would say getting specifically into the benefit of digitalization for Guyana agriculture. I just want to remind us of, for example, what has been the Expiry result of the Guyana agricultural strategy, and a couple of elements that are very worth mentioning when we are also talking about digitalization is that we are hoping to achieve higher growth in the sector. We are hoping to achieve high quality food for our people, also having an economic growth in an export-oriented country, and also becoming a destination of choice for entrepreneurs. And having this in mind, we need to really see how we can use digitalization to help the sector then achieve those objectives. By the way, I don't know if there has been a new strategy, because this one was supposed to end 2020, but I just felt that it was important to put into context the presentation that we are going to have. So next slide, please. And briefly to define digitalization, you can see on the screen how we as CTA, we define that concept. We don't define digitalization just for by looking at the technology itself, but really we are looking at how we can transform the business model and also practices across the agricultural value chain. And having in mind specifically how we are planning and how we can achieve greater income, how we can achieve food, improve food and nutrition security in our country and here in Guyana. So the definition of digitalization that CTA has come up with is directly having that objective in mind, so that the tools that we are designing are really fit to that specific purpose. Next slide. And the opportunity we are talking about here is about digitalization. So at CTA, we have identified three, or let's say four main areas when we are talking about digitalization, especially thinking about the value chain. And these specific areas are, first of all, the advisory services. Another one is what we call the market linkages. Another area that we are applying digitalization to is supply chain management, and then we have access to finance. And those three areas, or those four areas, we call them use cases. So the various digital tools that we may have, we see and we try to see how they can impact those four layers. And at the end of the day, we will see that when they impact those four layers, actually they are impacting the agricultural transformation in general. And when we are talking about COVID, we have seen that COVID is, of course, I would say, absolutely a negative phenomenon, but it has opportunities, especially digitalization is providing to us with some tools to benefit somehow from the COVID in order to address challenges that COVID is posing us. And there was a webinar that has been organized recently by ICA, and the Nobel Prize winner of 2019, Michael Kramer, has specifically mentioned the benefit that having digitalization across the agricultural sector will do for advisory services and even going beyond. And we have also seen that, for example, when we come to the level of the use case of market linkages, we can see that, and we all know that e-commerce has seen a boom, especially in this COVID period, because people can no more really move from the house because of the lockdown. And we have seen how e-commerce platforms like Amazon and the like have let's say, observed a very surge in the share price, for example. And this means that if we really want to benefit from or if we want to, I would say, address successfully issues, threats like COVID, we need to have stronger digitalization so that, for example, when we are talking about market linkages, when we are talking about supply chain management, when we are talking about collaboration inside the agricultural sector, we can benefit from it. We can have, I would say, a framework that can help us face more successfully and address the consequences of digitalization. And we really need to start strengthening the infrastructure that we have so that not only in this COVID period, but also when in the future, maybe other pandemic like that will happen, we are really well prepared to face them. Next slide. And talking about the opportunities as well, at the level of, at international level, we have seen that investment in agri-food tech in general. And I want to specify that by agri-food tech, we also go a bit beyond digitalization, but digitalization is at the core of agri-food tech. So we have seen that the investment in agri-food tech has been really increasing over the year. For example, last year it was about $21 billion that have been invested into digitalization or into agri-food tech. And we have seen that as it has been increasing over the years, it means that progressively at the level of, at the global level, we are understanding that digitalization is very key in our lives. Digitalization can really contribute to transforming the life. It can help to address hunger and many other challenges that we are facing. And even this year, even despite that we have the COVID situation, we already have almost 10 billion of investment in the agri-food tech sector. So this is a sign that it is something that is very important at the level of the world. So for Guyana as well, it has a lot of opportunities and we need to start then investing better in that sector. Next slide, please. You can also go to the next one. And this slide is basically showing some of the area in which digitalization can give benefit to the sector. I have already talked about the advisory services, the market linkages, the financial access, and also price chain management. Some of you may also be aware or may also be familiar of the model that FAO has developed in terms of benefit for the of digitalization for the sector. This is what you have on your right. And just to also give you some example of what we call digital technologies, we are not only talking about a mobile phone or, for example, the use of simple tools like Excel, because Excel can also be, I would say, recognized as a digital tool because it can help, for example, record keeping in in some areas. But we are also talking about new technologies, high-end technologies like drone in agriculture, like the use of satellite, like the use of blockchain. And all those technologies are currently already used in the sector and are impacting various use cases, various segments of the sector. Next slide, please. And just to give you some figure about the benefit that digitalization has been providing to the agricultural sector, I would like to mention figures in Africa, for example. So in Africa, CTA has done a report announced last year with Dalberg. And we have noticed when we were producing that report that digitalization is contributing to 30% of increase in income for smallholder farmers in Africa on average. When we talk about productivity, we have 33% of increase in productivity. And when you are at different use case, so digital market linkages or financial access, we have a clear figures that are showing that digitalization is actually and effectively benefiting and impact positively the sector in terms of outcome, in terms of income, in terms of productivity. Next slide, please. This slide is just showing example of how investment, even in the African setting, in terms of agricultural digitalization has been increasing over the years. Next slide. And again, regarding the opportunity, one thing that is important to mention is that, for example, those who are field agent extension officers that are involved, that are using now digital tools, they are seizing a lot of opportunities. They are, because of the use of digitalization, extension has been a modern and also has been profiling more positively extension officers. And this has a lot of potential in terms of attracting youth to the sector, because this is really, really important. As you know, and as we know, we don't have a lot of youth involvement in the ag sector, and digitalization has been a key instrument that has been supporting more inclusion, more engagement of youth in the agricultural sector, and has been helping the sector to develop new jobs. Next slide, please. And it's not only in Africa that we are seeing that. I have seen by Googling the web that even in Guyana, we have a lot of some initiative that has been implemented. I have come across the platform Farmer Market Guyana that has been promoted, that has been launched recently. I have not been able to actually go on the website itself. But this is an example of initiative that we have also in Guyana. And what is important is that those kind of initiatives are strengthened. There have been a lot of hackathons that have been organized here and there, also in Guyana. The one challenge that we have is that the products that are developed outside or after those hackathons are not mature enough to really impact the sector immediately. And also the startups that are working, the youth that are working on those platforms, they don't have, I would say, effective business models. They don't have sustainable business models for a number of reasons. And these are some of the challenges that we have to address if really we want the innovation to be really embedded into the sector and to transform it. Next slide. Briefly, we at CTA, we have also been involved in different activities in the region in order to promote digital innovation in agriculture by supporting youth involvement. We've organized hackathons, for example, in Suriname at the Caribbean Week for Agriculture, and we have been supporting through the program that we call AgriHack, more than 1,500 digital entrepreneurs from 60 countries to impact the agriculture, to transform it by developing solutions that are effectively currently used in different countries, especially of Africa. Next slide, please. When we did it in the Caribbean, we have some successes, but maybe less compared to Africa. Maybe because of I don't know, of a variety of reasons that we may, let's say, discuss about. But I just want to mention that we do have some young entrepreneurs that are trying to impact the sector in the Caribbean region in general. I don't know for Guyana particularly, but in Caribbean, in Jamaica, for example, we have Farm Credibly, we have also Agro Central, and these platforms are trying to transform the sector. And these youth, these entrepreneurs, we really need to design frameworks and solutions to support them, to help them better transform the sector. But I can propose some solution in the coming slides. Next slide, please. Briefly, we have been also recognized for our work. Next slide. We have some publication that we have produced that can also inspire stakeholders in Guyana regarding business models of AgTech, regarding innovation that are implemented elsewhere in Africa and also in different countries of the world, including in the Pacific region, for example. And these publications are available and may be of interest to some stakeholders. Next slide. These are also some programs we have at CTA, for example, like a drone for agriculture program. And in Jamaica, for example, we have a partner that has been implementing drone services for agriculture sector, especially at RADA with CTA support. Next slide. And this will be my last two slides. I would like to highlight a couple of, let's say, some challenges, some key challenges that we need to address in order really to benefit from digitalization for the sector. First of all, we need to increase the investment that we are currently, I would say, bringing, that we are devoting to the sector. The fact that weak challenges, the weak investment in agricultural transformation are observed is a real challenge. We also have the lack of development of let's say, mobile connectivity, particularly in rural areas. We have seen that there is an urban-rural divide, especially when we are talking about mobile coverage, and also somehow when we're also talking about fixed infrastructure. So if we really want to impact agriculture, we need to improve the connectivity in rural areas. And of course, there is a lack of digitalization for agriculture capacity at different levels, even some extension officers, some policymakers, and also young innovators when we are talking about business models that can support the implementation of effective digital solution for agriculture. We have capacity lack at that level. And another element that I want to mention is that actually we should not be too much, I would say, discouraged when we are implementing digital solution in agriculture and that we are not succeeding. It has been observed that we have 80% actually of digital transformation projects that fail at the global level. So in agriculture, we also have that challenge more specifically because it is a new sector that has been, let's say, accommodating the digitalization. So it is normal that we have more, I would say, failure maybe in the agricultural sector. But we need to understand what are those failures. We need to understand how to address those failures. We need to understand that when we are talking about digital transformation, we should not focus on the technology, but also we need to think about the human side of the matter. And I have already talked about the business model that are not sustainable. We have also observed that farmers generally, they don't want to pay for digital agribusiness services. So we need to address that. Sometimes it is because they don't have enough financial resources, but sometimes it is because the solutions are not effective enough. So how can we support digital entrepreneurs develop better products? That is a clear, I would say, challenge for us. And lastly, one key element is that, I mean, the digitalization will be more effective in the agricultural sector if it is considered at a regional level in the Caribbean. Because individual Caribbean countries may be, I would say, considering, for example, the size of the population may be small for businesses to have, let's say, market, to have a to implement services have benefit because of the small size of some of the countries. So because of that, the regional collaboration is very important. So we need to strengthen the digitalization, how we approach it, increase regional collaboration, and that will necessarily impact the effectiveness and the sustainability of the solution that we are providing. Next slide. So largely, this is what I wanted to share with you. This last slide is mentioning the recommendations, and the recommendations are directly coming from the challenges. So the need to develop human capacity to also, for example, promote and develop e-agriculture strategies. I think that is a clear need that we may identify in different countries of the Caribbean and probably also in Guyana. So we need to improve how we implement those strategies if they exist, or create them if they don't exist. And lastly, we need to invest in the digital agriculture research and innovation agenda, also at the regional level, because of what I have mentioned. So these are some of the recommendations that I would like to propose to us to think about. And I'd like to thank you very much for your attention. Also thank IDB, thank GMSA, thank also the Honorable Minister for their attention and for the opportunity that have been given to me to share with you those insights. Thank you very much, Carol.
Thank you, Ken, for sharing your wealth of experience and giving us the framework and so many specifics for us to focus on our digitization efforts. And what came out very strongly is not just the farmers who we need to focus on, but assisting those businesses who need to provide the services. So we need to do both so that we can improve our digitization efforts and have this cultural transformation that's required to sustain the growth and development in our agriculture. So with this comes to the end of the segment, and I would ask Raymond to take you through to the panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Carol. Very interesting experiences and presentations. We'll look at the short video before we go to the last session.
Guyana is not just the land of many waters, it is the land of a variety of fruits, vegetables, herbs, and spices. Some of these, such as lemongrass, have been traditionally used as home remedies for illnesses for generations. The list is enormous. Soursop, granny backbone, and capadula. These are locally grown plants that are now being explored and utilized for their medicinal benefits. Guyana is in an optimal position to capitalize on the abundance of produce from our soil. The locally grown superfoods, acai, soursop, ginger, and moringa can be used to produce a variety of juices, wines, and dried fruit with immense health benefits. We can tap into a growing organic beauty products industry using aloe, berries, and fruits to produce hair and skincare products such as masks and scrubs, all carrying hefty prices on the international markets. Environmentally friendly packages can be made from biodegradable film that are manufactured using cassava and rice starch. Also, to meet the recent demand for ethanol to manufacture sanitizers, we have an abundance of land to grow sugarcane. The possibilities are endless.
Well, we have a good springboard for the last session in which we will seek to identify actions and imperatives to move this sector forward. This session will be in the form of a panel discussion, and our moderator for the session is Ms. Kaya Miller. Kaya is an international economic consultant and the founder of Aslan Global Inc. She has advised leaders in Latin America, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East at the subnational, national, and regional levels on issues related to competitiveness, economic development, and prosperity creation. She is an associate at Professor Michael E. Porter's Institute for Strategy and Competitiveness at Harvard, and a member of Rwandan President Paul Kagame's Advisory Council since its inception in 2007. In addition to advising national governments on their long-term visions and strategies, she has also advised cluster-specific initiatives in many countries. Kaya has the task or pleasure, we'll find out which, of moderating the next session, which is a panel discussion. And before I hand over to Kaya, you will note that we are running late on time. We hope you don't mind that we extend this session a little bit, well, go a little longer than 12:30. We will, however, close before 1 o'clock. So with your indulgence, we will give Kaya at least 45 minutes to run this session. Thank you very much. Over to Kaya.
Thank you so much, Raymond. Wow, I have been blown away by these presentations and really appreciate the opportunity to moderate this final session, which is all about action. We heard from GMSA President, Mr. Shyam Nokta, in his opening remarks, encouraging us to say, you know, we need to act. So how do we take the steps necessary to build on the successes we've heard about and realize some of the exciting opportunities that are out there waiting for us? What strategies do we need to put in place to address challenges that people like Cheryl are facing in sourcing materials and financing growth, and to encourage other innovative entrepreneurs like Kapil and Yanni at Plimpton, Aditya at Fresh Cut, and Robert from Sterling, and strategies to leverage ties with the diasporans like Wayne and Kofi to gain expertise and reach new markets, or leverage some of those amazing tech opportunities we just heard about from Ken. Before I introduce our distinguished panelists who will shed light on these and other questions, I do want to underscore a key message we heard today. The presenters showed us that building a globally competitive, high-value ag cluster in Guyana is possible. As the Honorable Minister said himself, the sector has what it takes. At the Guyana Development Initiative, our team has been working over the past 14 months to analyze Guyana's competitiveness, business environment, and cluster performance. Guyana has the advantages and potential in agriculture, including for small producers. You know them: a rich history, fertile land, abundant water, tropical climate, long growing seasons. Furthermore, Guyana is known around the world for its low deforestation and historic focus on the environment. The country's poised to benefit from some exciting global trends, and as Dr. Eric Hanson mentioned, sell what the market's demanding, not just what you can produce. I think you know what I'm talking about. There are trends toward healthy lifestyles, a demand for all things organic, sustainably produced products and supply chains, zero deforestation commitments from producers, and greater transparency about where food comes from and how it's produced. These trends all align nicely with Guyana's advantages. Personally, I pay quite a bit of money for frozen acai berry puree at Trader Joe's supermarket up here in Boston, Massachusetts, because I hear it's a superfood full of antioxidants that may improve my cognitive function. And I'll pay even more if it comes in sustainable packaging, perhaps made from sugarcane, rice husks, or pineapple tops. With strategic investments, Guyana is very well positioned to meet the rising demand for sustainable, climate-smart, high-value agriculture production and processing. And the way to get there? Working together. Building a globally competitive agribusiness cluster involves everyone, more than just the farmers and processors. It goes beyond the suppliers and distributors. It includes the government, the universities, the international partners like the Inter-American Development Bank and the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. By working collaboratively, all sorts of ways, joint R&D initiatives, market intelligence, regional branding, joint purchasing, supply chain development, incubator services, technical training, infrastructure investment, working together not just today in this webinar, but on an ongoing basis, everyone will win. And organizations like GMSA are the glue that brings the cluster together. We're honored to have three very distinguished panelists with us today as part of our final session. They bring a wealth of experience and insight to discussions around building a globally competitive agribusiness cluster. First, we have Mr. Ramesh Dukku, known well by many of you. Ramesh is a former president of GMSA and former chair of the Private Sector Commission. He's on the board of governors of the Institute of Internal Auditors of Guyana and head of business development at Banks DIH. His experience and accomplishments are many, but I would note one in particular. He has served as the private sector representative on the University Council at the University of Guyana. Second, we have Mr. Juan Manuel Chaez Pelaez. Juan is an economist from the Dominican Republic. He is the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization's Trade and Markets Officer for the Caribbean, and since 2018 has led the organization's value chain development programming in the region, focused on promoting and supporting the development of competitive and resilient agriculture value chains. And finally, we have Mr. George Jarvis, who has served a remarkable 28 years in Guyana's Ministry of Agriculture. Presently, he wears two hats, Chief Tech Officer and head of the Agriculture Sector Development Unit, where he oversees donor-funded projects. He regularly represents Guyana at meetings throughout the Caribbean, Latin America, and beyond. His passion and love for agriculture permeate all his endeavors. A very warm welcome to all three of our panelists. And without further ado, let me turn it over to them to give very short 1-2 minute introductory remarks and set the stage for an interactive panel discussion. Let's begin with Ramesh. Thank you so much for being here today. The floor is yours.
Hi all, protocols being observed. I'm not sure who's still on with us. Thank you for this opportunity to participate in this webinar on behalf of the Manufacturers Association. Let me jump right into it. Caribbean countries have failed its farmers over many years. We have failed to deliver processing. We have failed to organize them in a way that makes their produce competitive in the world marketplace. And we have failed to help them to transform these products into supermarket-ready products. I do not totally agree that we don't have an adequate supply of primary agricultural produce for processing. We have tons of mangoes that are spoiled in the Rupununi every year. We have tons of oranges from other parts of Guyana that, for want of better infrastructure, continue to be spoiled. What it is do we need? We need to incentivize the sector. We need to develop our certification programs. We need a certification laboratory in Guyana, and we need it like yesterday. We needed it 10 years ago, and we still need it today. We need to look at our import tariffs to create the space for local agro-processors to do what it is they have to do to innovate and to create new industries. We need more than one certification laboratories. We need to turn around Gaisuko. A refinery is a very profitable thing. And I've indicated to the minister that we need to put together a small group of people to look at the feasibility of refining sugar in Guyana. It can turn around Gaisuko and save us a huge amount of money. And we can also supply the region. Most of the region at the moment imports sugar from Guatemala. We do not have our dependency of 41% on imports, many of which are improperly labeled, do not meet health standards and our laws. Our inability to police those laws is found wanting. If that happens, it will create the space again for local producers to do import substitution. We need crop insurance. We need to encourage large US food manufacturers to grow their produce here. We need to have a natural gas-driven electricity program going on. We need more cold storage in Guyana. And those are some of the things I think we can move forward with. The tax changes mentioned by the minister is very welcomed. I hope he can deliver on them very soon. We need to encourage the growth of new primary products because of climate change. I'm told, I'm not an expert, but we have persons in Guyana now growing grapes in their backyards, and this needs to be encouraged. And I take my hats off to Aditya and all the other young ladies and young men who have demonstrated here what they can do in terms of entrepreneurial kind of agricultural activities. NARI needs to do reality-based research. We need to do things that can benefit the agricultural community. They must take an example from IAST. IAST has just helped to produce a ketchup, which is now being used by one of the largest food chains in Guyana, Quick Serve, owned by Bank CIH, company I work for. We're buying that tomato, and every time you buy a box of chicken, that locally made sun-dried tomato ketchup is in the box. And big business would like to support these initiatives. We believe in supporting local. The minister's comments are very, very encouraging to me as someone who works for a large agro-processor, and I hope that he can deliver again. It is the job of ministers to make promises. It is the job of business people to make sure they deliver. Just to give you an example of how tax initiatives work. 2 years ago, the GMA approached the government of Guyana for us to encourage the growth of the indigenous wine industry in Guyana. A few changes and tweaks were made to accommodate and encourage indigenous wines in Guyana, and it has now yielded some tremendous results. We now have a jamun wine, a tamarind wine, every kind of wine you can think about from local produce we have in Guyana now, especially from a company called Pandama Wines. So that's a real life experience of what can happen in a very short time. We need to bridge the gap between the ordinary farmer and all of this, how can I put it, academic speak. We need to find a way to make sure that the farmer understands and we trap him into our collective effort. We need to expand the concept of local farming into agriculture, local content, which is a big issue in Guyana now, mainly focused on the oil industry. We need to translate and include agriculture in that effort. But I mean, I could go on, but I won't be like some of my other friends and eat up all the time that we have. So I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ramesh. And it's a good thing this is being recorded because I couldn't write fast enough to write down all of those excellent ideas. And I love a provocative panelist. Thank you. Let's shift next to our international partner from the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. Juan, the floor is now yours.
Good morning, everyone. All protocols observed. I must agree with you, Kaya, that I was also blown away with the quality of the presentations. It was really encouraging and humbling at the same time to know about all the efforts and passion that are going behind each of these initiatives. And also encouraging because they illustrate the type of challenges and opportunities that are found along the value chain, and we can learn from the innovative ways in which the different actors are trying to address them. Really, very encouraging set of presentations. To start and kick it off from my part, I'd like to say that we in the region need to move away from certain ways of doing business and mental models about agriculture and learn, for example, from this innovative initiative, trying to move to more effective, efficient, sustainable business models, namely, where both farmers and small-scale entrepreneurs, as well as buyers, with the support from business and technology service providers, are working together in a collaborative manner to build the capacity of those farmers and small-scale entrepreneurs that are the ones that generally struggle the most along the chain, in order to assist in reducing their costs to become more competitive farmers and other suppliers can really, through some models, get some market guarantees so that they don't have to be worried about all aspects in the chain, such as worrying about, don't need to stress over marketing issues, and there is a coordinated relationship. The more farmers and entrepreneurs that we can get on board to a more long-term relationship, the better that we can slowly add more value. Now, the situation in the region, we need to target avoiding some short-term perspectives, scatter operations that don't allow, aggregation and scaling up by individual farmers, excessive price bargaining, and unreasonable cases of profit maximization. We cannot build healthy industries based on that type of behaviors. One key thing is that market orientation and market security is very important. And in terms of value chain development, which is the area that most competes to me, value chain strategy can be quite straightforward. We need to go back to the basics. We need to adopt, number one, a full systems approach. Do the analysis from a full chain perspective. The real root problem sometimes, it is not sometimes what we think it is. There are inefficiencies at one stage of the value chain that are inhibiting development of the whole chain. We can see that clearly illustrated in the case of the ice cream that was presented. We also need to understand and calculate what your cost of productions are. This is a basic yet elusive necessity. We need to run the numbers. We need to make the case for structured relationships with the farmers. And to do that, we need to know what the full cost of production across the entire chain are, from transport, production, primary processing, secondary processing, and take a look also at market prices in terms of what goods are selling for and where, to know whether the chain can actually compete or not. And it is not always on price. We have seen numerous products that are commanding a premium price over exports and still can have a market space. Third, we need to validate the cost structures and profit margins. We need to run those numbers also with the private sector and identify possible efficiencies, for example, in terms of use of technologies and through process innovation. And finally, the whole issue of helping de-risk agriculture. It is imperative that we try to address some of the more structural challenges in developing value chains and agribusinesses by developing the enabling environment, by developing targeted package of public support to help convince farmers, processors, and other stakeholders to invest. As they can see that cost sharing and risk can be reduced between the partners, there is more likely that they will invest and that they will engage in win-win long-term relationships. Over.
Thank you so much, Juan. And finally, let's hear from the Ministry of Agriculture. Sounds like Ramesh is gonna have your feet to the fire. George, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I must concur with you that you have a very provocative panel. And, you would have it no way less than this. From the minister's speech, and as we're all aware, the minister's speech is usually instructions, and it's usually, the minister actually gave his State of the Union address, if we may use that term, because what we're now going to do is guided by his direction there. But let me just stay in keeping with today's topic. In addition to the many things that both of the previous speakers elaborated.
Sorry to interrupt, George. Can you speak up just a little bit?
Sorry, can you hear me better now?
A little bit better, yes.
Okay, so in addition to the things that were said earlier, I want to go to the fundamentals. The thing is, I would start from having that cost of production known. It was a very good point that Juan made, because many persons ask for more money than it's costing them, and that's why they keep themselves out of the market. But again, I will concur with Ramesh, because our institutions will have to work closely with the farmers to help them have high quality products that are available for the markets, to have high yielding varieties of whatever we do so that our productivity can allow the farmers' operations to be of such that they can make a profit without having to go overboard. And we'd like to see graded farmers' produce being purchased by way of grades. What you find out, there is no incentive to many farmers to spend extra money to have the grade A product because they're having the same price for grade A as you would have for B, C, or D. Unfortunately, for the purpose of agro-processing, which is why we're here basically, you would have liked the A, B, and C grades to have gone off to one kind of market, and the grades that are not necessarily as finished or as good, being available for processing, especially in flowers and other things.
So Juan, George, if I can ask you, I'd like to start to explore some of these issues that you and the other panelists have been raising. I think you've set an excellent stage and given us some ample food for thought, so to speak, haha. Let's, if you don't mind, I'd like to, given the time, maybe jump right into our more interactive panel discussion.
No problem with me.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, one of the issues that came up in the second session and was even referenced in the introductory remarks is this issue of creating opportunities and creating jobs within the agricultural sector and how important the sector is for the country. Ramesh, as the private sector person on the panel, Guyana has a challenge of high women and youth unemployment, and many of the best and brightest young graduates are leaving the country looking for opportunity elsewhere. With all these exciting opportunities in agriculture, do you think young people in Guyana see a future for themselves in this sector? And specifically, what can the organizations like the University of Guyana and other institutions do to encourage youth to go into agriculture?
Let me try to backtrack a little bit. The history of Guyana, where many of our parents came from an agrarian kind of economy, working with the estates, as well as, and then that graduated into our parents and grandparents doing farming of their own. All of that has etched out a good living for persons. But all of those parents wanted their children to become doctors and lawyers. Now we have too many lawyers in Guyana, and they're messing up our country, I should say. All of them are politicians. Anyway, so farming needs to be a little more sexy, and it's great to see people like Aditya, my young friend, and Cheryl, and some of the others doing what they're doing. And I think we're turning around. We're taking that turn. We're taking that turn, and it's very, very encouraging. Your last question, we're still not there. Many Guyanese graduates are still leaving. 60 to 70% are leaving the country. We have to come up, and my friend Eric was involved in a project years ago, which I was also involved in, where we focused on the retention of our graduates into Guyana. And I'm sure I could ask Rosalinda to share that document with you. But we have to make that turn, because there are lots of opportunities, as we heard today, that are associated with the agricultural sector.
Well, I think that I agree with you. And I think the presenters this morning did make agriculture look very cool and sexy. So hopefully we can build that base. So many good ideas. I'm going to shift a little bit right now over to Ramesh. You want to hold the government to what it says it's going to do, and shift to the topic of government support for small agricultural businesses. And I want to involve the audience here and do a quick one-question poll. Audience, get ready. And Ben, could you please cue our next poll question, which is about How is the Small Business Act, which requires government to award 20% of contracts to small businesses, how is it working?
Seconds to poll out. Already a lot of responses. Seeing nearly 100 people so far have given their answer to this. Very excited to share the results momentarily.
Ben, you were very faint there for a minute.
All right, we are going to close the polling in just a few more seconds. If you have something to say it now and hit submit.
Wow, okay. 42% don't know what's going on with the Small Business Act, and only 3% say it's working very well. Let me turn to George, and let's talk about government purchasing. So clearly from the poll, it seems like there's some room for improvement. And you know, in many countries, the government is a key customer for local products. And by being a demanding customer and insisting on the highest quality and highest standards, the government can actually help suppliers improve their products and businesses. How can small producers and processors in agriculture, including the 4 we heard from in the previous session, take better advantage of the Small Business Act? As the minister mentioned, there are plenty of opportunities to sell to the Army, hospitals, school feeding programs. George, what do you have to say?
Well, we are having discussions with our minister who's less than a month old. And we're looking at the role of the Guyana Marketing Corporation so that they may be able to utilize both their linkage of farmers to markets and markets to farmers to a role where they can get involved in some of the purchasing and have the farmers deliver. Now that is still, these are still early days yet. But I wanted, but as I'm on the floor, I just wanted to make a quick sentence, say a quick sentence. Agriculture, this is in relation to what you said earlier. To get the young people into agriculture, in addition to making it sexy, we've got to look at precise mechanized agriculture, where instead of having 500 persons do your farming, you have to make the machines and equipment available. And as we saw with the pepper farm, that is the kind of agriculture that will attract young people because it's more food production and farming, even though they're one and the same. Now, in terms of the question that you just asked, GMC has a role to play in there. And we've got to also look very closely at how we make adjustments to our Procurement Act, because some of that has to do with how things will have to be procured, even though there is a desire to move to the 20% for small farmers.
Thank you so much. I want to pick up on a point you were making about the technology, and maybe that is a way to make it sexy. As we were hearing from Ken, the agri-hacks and all of the other programs that are designed to sort of merge agriculture with this tech field. I would like to turn to Juan at this point, jumping down to a question on technology. There's so many ways, Juan, to leverage technology to improve the agriculture cluster performance. We saw some of them in the presentations: robots, temperature and moisture sensors, drones, GPS technology, even smartphone apps for improving this precision agriculture. What, in your opinion, is the most exciting tech innovation in agriculture that you think Guyana could leverage to improve cluster performance? Juan?
Yes, a challenging question indeed, and perhaps with a boring answer. But I think that the best technology is that which makes sense to the farmer and the business person. Technology has to be, in the first place, economically feasible if it is to be sustainable. Otherwise, the robots will help no one. Sometimes basic innovations, I think in many times, are being overlooked for more sexy technology as some of you have been emphasizing. For example, just to give you an example, in the case of a value chain we're developing in Jamaica, the single bud technology in ginger, which means simply cutting a simple cutting technique to multiply planting materials from India. It is simple. It is not changing the world, but it has been a total game changer for the ginger sector. So I would say that the advice is, if the shoes fit, wear them as they are and leave the more sophisticated things for when the type is right. The other point also about technology is that technical solutions in themselves alone will not work. For example, the single bud technology I just mentioned as a game changer is a game changer in Jamaica because we have also combined it with tissue culture, certification program, public-private partnership. So technology is just one component of a broader effort. In addition to the technology, it has to make sense and actually add value to the bottom line, to the farmers in the field. Also, all of our farmers are different. Technology possibilities look very different from the perspective of a small and from the perspective of a large farmer. Mind you that in the case of the SBP technology, you know, even the big people or the big guys are finding it is a big changer, even if it is a simple one. So you can see in the case of the ginger in Jamaica that there are many conversations that are coming up with the private sector about technologies, but mainly related to reduced labor, for example, talking about mechanical harvesters. So at the end, what technology can, the question would be, what technology can reduce the cost of your biggest cost, the cost of your cost structure in farming? Is it energy? Is it labor? Is it water, aggregation facilities and distribution, or other? So that is where technology makes the big difference, I think.
Thank you so much. Clearly, it's a huge topic, and maybe it merits its own webinar one of these days, and that might be something we want to follow up on. I want to turn it back to Ramesh. One of the issues we heard a lot about from our friends, the entrepreneurs, this morning was about financing. You know, Cheryl was talking about the difficulty interacting with the SBB and trying to get investment for her company. It's a big issue. And banks sometimes seem wary to take on the risk and uncertainty associated with farming. Insurance products are not readily available. And when they're faced with an unsophisticated small entrepreneur, they're wary to sort of invest in that kind of lack of sophistication. What are the alternative sources? And is it realistic to think that we can get angel investors from the diaspora? Or eventually, how do we get the banks on board? Is there a way through the SBB to offer non-collateral loans? What do you think on the topic of access to financing, Ramesh?
Let's start from the private sector. Many large rice producers, as they exist now, are financing individual farmers. The collateral is when the product is done, you give it to me, I mill it, I export it, and I pay you. That system is working very well. There's a large company, one of the largest rice producers in Guyana, Aditya Prasad, on the quarantine coast, who's doing that, and it works well for him. Farmers need a simple way. Banking, the traditional banking sector is too complicated for them. By the time the interest rates are done with them, they can't sell their produce at the profit. So a lot of thought needs to go into this. If we can manage some kind of subsidized insurance policy for a farmer, maybe the banks will be able to lend more freely and take larger risks. Our banking sector in Guyana is risk averse. They don't take any risk on nothing. They're collateral based. They lack the ability to assess risk of investments, etc. So the banking sector itself has to change. Banking regulations has to change. And then we need to find a way to do the insurance that could reduce the risk as it's seen by the bank. I want to indulge here and make a quick comment about the Small Business Act. The Small Business Act is now about 15 years old, and nothing has been done really. it doesn't function because many governments, the last 3 governments, have been focusing on policing the act. I want to see your accounts. I want it approved by a recognized audit body. You know, people in small business hardly ever do those things. And that is why it's not working. It has failed in about 3 governments. So we need to do like what the US did years ago. We need to pass an act that compels government departments to buy produce from small businesses. We don't need to create a register, as long as I can prove to you that I'm making some coffee. For example, and coffee, speaking about coffee, there's a Amy's Pomeroon Coffee in Guyana that is struggling to get government contracts to supply coffee, but they're supplying Exxon. So there goes. Where's the government in all of this?
Yeah, well, let's turn it back to the government. I agree there are some untapped opportunities there, especially with the COVID pandemic and the necessity for you know, food security and food hampers and the programs that the government will be putting in place. Possible opportunities for small businesses. Okay, let's turn it over then to George. You know, along with the, you know, it's difficult to work with the government, that act hasn't been working. This is similar to themes we've heard from others about red tape and just, it's problematic interacting with government. Sophie told us this morning it takes 200 hours to export, and Kapil confirmed that. George, feet to the fire, what are some of the things the ministry is doing to make it easier to get things done, particularly when it comes to agriculture? George?
Okay, so before I go there, let me just touch on the issue of financing because it's really serious. And one of the things that we have not gotten working outside the government is contract farming. Contract farming is one of the best ways that persons can be financed. And all parties, you spread risk, share risk, and many persons got the leg up. Because I know of persons, especially in the rice sector, who started off very small and now they're in the hundreds of acres. In terms of what government is doing, the plans that Minnesota read out, in terms of the concessions and the breaks and so on, are the initial steps that government is doing. What we are also pushing for is that the dietary that government buys for its agencies, which ironically or incidentally, in 2019, it was $6 billion. We are actively pursuing getting as much of that as possible to the farmers, especially in those areas where the school feeding program works. The school feeding program is a significant sum, and that sum can be made available to farmers directly. The challenge that you have with many of these things, though, is the time it takes, the turnaround time for persons to be paid. So the small farmer can't wait to be paid in October for goods that he delivered in August. And so that's why we have to look at the role that GMC has got to play to see how we can have that system of payment being done in a more expeditious way. That's one. The other thing that is being looked at is having the farmers receive non-cash aid from government. The aid part is separate, but in the case of several farming communities, we have machines and equipment lending support, and that takes off a big chunk of the cost, especially to clear new lands and to make the drainage and irrigation systems in place. And we are doing it by the, I would say literally by the thousands of acres in a systematic way. And that is one of the ways we're trying to have a level playing field. The farmer wants some land cleared, we clear it. If there's irrigation drainage to be done, it's being done. And it's not just done on the coastal plain, it's also being done in regions 8 and 9.
Well, I look forward to hearing ongoing dialogue about all of these issues. I really hate to interrupt such a lively and substantive discussion, but my eye is on the clock, and I see that we're coming to the end of our time and almost to the end of the webinar. Before I turn it back to Raymond Ramsaroop of GMSA, are there any burning issues, panelists, that we didn't get a chance to discuss that you want to take 1 minute to talk about? And then I'll turn it back over to Raymond. Ramesh?
Yeah, so thank you for that opportunity again. The act that I refer to is a 1933 Buy American Act, 1933, where the government is obligated to buy local production and services. And as I said, we need to cut out some of the red tape. My vision for agro-processing in Guyana is that we absorb all the primary products we can absorb, and we support local private farmers in technology, as Mr. Jarvis is saying. And by the way, I've just been told by Mr. Marlon Cole, who is somewhere on this webinar, he is the head of the Food and Drugs Department, and he has sent me his certification as a certified inspector of food and drugs. So we are making some progress. Marlon, congratulations to you. I will stop there.
Okay, let me turn it over to Juan. Any last burning thoughts you want to leave us with, Juan?
Thanks to the GSMA, of course, and all the organizers, to the executive board, and also to our FAOR, Dr. Gillian Smith, for facilitating our engagement in this very important webinar. I think it is important to recall some of the points made by Minister Mustafas at the beginning, when he spoke about Guyana being a food secure country producing 59% of its food, and the intention of the government of even improving that by reducing, further the amount of imports. And also he spoke about looking for opportunities to strengthen value chains by addressing issues of cost of production, including raw materials, fertilizers, energy coordination, etc. I think that the structural issues that affect any value chain, doesn't matter where, it is an important strategic dimension that needs to be addressed. I mean, we need to look at each value chain one by one, understand, address all the issues that we identify about cost of production, innovation, R&D, technology, etc. But if at the end of the day, we are not competitive because we have these severe structural gaps, then we will have a problem. I think that this is a critical set of binding constraints that needs attention. I just like to end by saying that FAO stands ready to work with partners, with the GSMA to build capacity and to address some of these issues in a practical and efficient way.
Thank you so much, Juan, and for your organization. And George, I invite you to make one last comment before we close this session.
Very brief. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here. And I would like to say that just as though we have ongoing promotion of local produce, we've got to keep that going too, because I make it my duty. If I go in the supermarket or the rum shop or anywhere, if there is a Guyanese product of equal or even marginally lower quality, I go for that, because when I contribute to Guyana's product, I'm contributing to our farmers and to the folks who need it value. Thank you very much.
Thank you again to all of our three panelists for sharing their expertise, for the lively discussion, the many practical ideas that can be put in place to build a competitive agribusiness cluster that will not only be successful globally, but will translate to jobs and improve livelihoods in Guyana. As Kapil said so eloquently in session 2, he's focused not just on products, but on people at the end of the day. And we're talking about people and their livelihoods. The ideas discussed in this panel and throughout the entire webinar will be documented and made available by GMSA to all those interested, and will be used to inform the cluster strategy going forward. Any questions participants had that were not addressed will be addressed offline. Thank you all so much for your kind attention. And now back to you, Raymond.
Thank you very much, Kaya. I'm very happy that you mentioned that these things will be documented and disseminated. I am not going to even try to pull anything out of it. I'm still spinning a bit with so much that was discussed in that session. Thank you very much to all the panelists as well. My apologies to all of you participating. I'm really sorry that we went so much overtime. We are practically at the end now. I trust that we have had a better appreciation of the issues and challenges involved in Guyana's agriculture cluster. And at the same time, I hope you're also excited by the opportunities that it presents and are better informed regarding what we need to do to strengthen the value chain and expand agriculture in a post-COVID-19 environment. The GMSA, for its part, recognizes its role as a major stakeholder and will continue to do what it has to in moving the process forward. We will be taking a few initiatives in this regard. As we speak, plans are underway to alleviate the impact of loss of markets for small agro producers due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Sham would have mentioned that we are in the process of, in partnership with Exxon, creating a virtual on-cap marketplace platform. We encourage small producers and processors to register on this. And you can contact the Secretariat for more information on how you can participate in that. We recognize that a one-off webinar will not be sufficient, and so as Kai mentioned, there are plans for further webinars. On your screens, or as you exit your screen shortly, you will notice an exit survey. We encourage you to take a few minutes and complete the survey. And as an incentive, there will also be a random drawing of prizes for those who complete the survey. I am told that, well, I shouldn't say what kind of spirit or spirits in it is involved, but something is involved there. One of the questions on the survey will request your suggestions on topics for follow-up webinars or engagements. We will also be doing follow-up engagement surveys later to see, later to see how we can better meet your and the sector's need. This engagement must continue and collaborations must arise from it that will develop the sector. We have a wonderful opportunity before us. Together we can strengthen the value chain and expand agriculture in Guyana. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the GMSA, the IDB, the Ministry of Agriculture, and the GDI, partners in this webinar, I thank you all for attending, and please remember to complete the exit survey. Do keep safe and have a good day. Thank you all very much.